Conservation Commission for May 14th, 2019. So we'll start with our continued hearings. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, there'll be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent by James Exaris for the development of a single-family residential house lot within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone, address Lot 3, Mary Ave Extension, map 419, Lot 23. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Yes. And if you'd like to wait a minute, you can open the next hearing too if you want. Up to you.
It's 6:05. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, there'll be a public hearing. Consider as a notice of intent for James Exaris for the construction of a 3-lot residential subdivision with associated roadway utilities. The eastern portion of the project is within a 100-foot wetland buffer zone, address 1157R, map 419, lot 23.
I'm Anthony Cleves from Whitman and Bingham Associates, here on behalf of the applicant and property owner, James Exaris. As you may recall, we've had 2 or 3 meetings regarding this project, and as I recall, where we kind of left off was to have independent reviews of the wetland systems that are out there. We were going to hire LEC, Tom Perlegaro, to take a look at that, and I believe the commission was also going to look at a consultant for them as well. I don't believe the commission has had the opportunity to choose that consultant yet. I think I see it on the agenda tonight later on. So as we kind of discussed before, I believe the commission felt as though it wasn't worth getting into too much of the details of the project until that's worked out, which I completely understand that. To update you though, we did go before the planning board with the first hearing with them, presented the project to the board, updated them where we were with the Conservation Commission, so kind of a similar discussion kind of until we get a little further along with the wetland delineation and with the commission. They're going to kind of hold off on too much of their stuff there. We did receive some comments from DEP. If you want to get into those again, if you want to not get into too much until we work out the wetland delineation, that's fine too. Whatever the commission would like to do.
Do you want to hear DEP comments or no?
I mean, at this point, it sounds like we'll kind of have to wait until some things get hashed out anyway between it. Doesn't seem like it really, at this point.
Okay.
I mean, as long as their needs, their concerns are being addressed, if we can get a copy of it in an email so we can look at it and, we can kind of come back and address it when we have all our ducks in a row.
Right,
Probably make more sense, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the comments are straightforward. I have answers for all of them. They're pretty simple.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about that, but I agree. I think it's the big question always was just making sure we're all on the same page with the delineation and then moving on from there. So.
Just one quick question. That orange line is the current 100-foot buffer.
Correct.
With the current
Yep.
wetland delineation.
Correct. Yeah, nothing has changed to the plan we originally submitted. Purple is the wetland delineation there. This was an isolated area, and again, to recap, the areas for further consideration was to determine if this isolated wetland is truly isolated or if there's a connection, making it jurisdictional. And then there was also an area of concern right about this location here. And so those were the two main points that further consideration was being put up.
You good, Paul?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, if there's nothing, we request a continuance.
Sure,
We're
we
in
can
favor
do
of
that.
that.
Yep, and
For sure.
we'll talk. We have the proposals here, so we'll have that discussion at that time in the agenda.
At the end, do you need me to stick around for that for any reason? Like,
I'm just gonna, do you mind if I just ask real quick, do you have any conflicts of interest with GZA, Ecotech, or Lucas Environmental?
I don't.
Okay,
but I can't
that's what I
speak.
figured.
I can't speak for our wetlands consultant. We use multiple consultants.
I'll double check with them when he
So
comes.
it would be more the wetland consultant. So we don't know. I don't have any issues with anybody then.
Okay. No, I don't think you need to be here for that discussion.
Yes.
I'll be here for the last hearing anyway. So if you do,
Oh,
I'll be here.
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next continued hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended to be a public hearing to consider abbreviated notice of resource area delineation by Matt Morrow, Environmental Consulting, for the 2190 Trust to evaluate the boundaries of an area subject to wetlands protection address, Lot E, Orchard Hill Park Drive, map 386, Lot 4-1C, DEP 199-1083. Obviously, Matt Morrow is not here.
Yes, he did give me a call. He might be running late. He
Okay.
has a prior engagement.
Okay.
I told him if he wasn't here, we could go around to our regular scheduled business if we needed to.
Okay, we will do that. That's fine. All right.
Do you want to go to review of estimates?
Yes, why don't we do that?
So I provided you with a copy of the estimates.
Correct.
I received from GZA, Ecotech, and Lucas Environmental. I was supposed to receive a fourth from Karen Environmental, but unfortunately, he decided after some thought that it was not a good idea for him.
Okay. I haven't read these. I'm just looking at the cost. Have you read these, Angela?
Yes, except for the one from GZA, because I received that one at 4:30 this afternoon. But going through them briefly, I think we should pick for the Mariab one consultant, and then for the INRAD another consultant, maybe someone who has a little more background with vernal pools,
Okay.
which I believe that GZA would be the best choice for that one. After doing some research on them and the work they do, that would be the best one that I would choose for that, so their
Okay.
experience with the vernal pools.
Okay. And that was for the Orchard Hill Park one.
Yes.
So for Mary Ave, we have GZA at 4,500, Ecotech at 1,600, and Lucas Environmental at 1,400, with an additional of $400 for site plan and report.
Does the GZA one include both? Because that seems like
No.
it's almost triple the
That's
price.
mine.
Which seems a little odd.
I was actually going to ask, like, did I hear that?
Yeah, that seems,
Oh, I'm sorry.
for the amount of time.
But it's still higher.
For the amount
I'm
of time
sorry.
I think it's going to take, right? I was like, that seems.
But still $3,200 for GZA for Mary Ave. So they're still higher than the other two, substantially. That's why I didn't know, because you didn't even get a chance to read
I didn't read
these.
the whole thing, but I did talk to them on the phone quite a bit. They were very communicative about their experience and what we needed for the project.
Okay.
So, and they have a larger team, so it wouldn't take as long.
Okay.
Honestly, it wouldn't take as long, but they'd be able to cover more areas. And when myself and Larry and Matt went on the site, it was pretty extraneous. It was a long time, and we didn't even finish halfway through.
Right.
You're talking about, what you told me?
Orchard Hill, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got over like 200 flags.
We didn't get to start reviewing like the numbers or
Are
anything.
these ones for Orchard Hill or are these ones for Mary Ave?
The ones I read were just for Mary Ave.
Oh, okay.
So I did make a mistake. It's $3,200 for GZA for Mary Ave. 16, and then looks like 1,800.
Okay.
1,800 for Lucas Environmental.
I think we may have just budgeted more time to be out there.
For the Mary Ave one.
Yeah, for GZA, I think they probably budgeted more time than.
Yeah, because they had to do a lot of historical research.
Yeah,
for that
too.
one. including all the soil samples, water surveys.
Will they give us a discount if we take them from both projects? Yeah, like a package deal?
And then for the Orchard Hill Parks, it was 12. It's all mixed up here. Orchard Hill.
I'm just interested in the difference between.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
what
without
they're
like
scoping,
actually reading,
you know?
there's 7, 8 pages and I just got handed them, so it's kind of difficult at this point. I don't know. Someone wants to review them, but there's obviously a substantial difference.
Do you mind if I take a look at them?
You go check one's pretty quick, easy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just be interested in what, like, GZA is offering
Right.
that the other two aren't, or if they're just more expensive.
Because the city has not accepted the law that requires them to be responsible. This is something that the city council and the pretty sure the city council sent it to the state. If you want to let a couple commission members review it, go back to the Orchard Hills.
What's that?
If you want to let a couple, like, let Amanda review it and then come back. to
Yeah, we
it.
can do that. That's fine. So these are, I just want to make sure we got all the right ones. Mary Ave. And then one's at Orchard Hill Parks. All right. Well, she's reviewing that, so we don't hold everybody up. We can go back to our 610 hearing for the Orchard Hill Park Drive, map 386, DEP 199-1083.
Good evening.
Mr. Morrow.
Well, I mean, to date, Commissioner Giannakis, Angela, and myself went out and looked at part of the site. I guess we're just going to start over with whoever gets the peer review.
I hear
We'll go with
you.
them.
I hear it's quite a site.
There's a lot of wetlands on it. It's a big site. There's a lot of flags. I went out and looked at the 2 potential vernal pools that DEP talked about. I went out with Tom Christopher, and we both looked at the shoreline, waded around, lifted up logs and everything. We found, if you're looking at the pathway that bisects the 2 terminal ends of the wetland from Target
Yeah.
into the woods, the one on the left definitely has vernal characteristics, egg masses, wood frogs. I mean, I've got recordings, pictures. The other side, nothing. Kind of makes sense when you think about it, because the wetland on the left side comes in, you have water flowing into it, and it just dead ends because there's no connection between the 2. The other side is not going to hold water in long enough because it's drained. That one drains.
And you guys got to see about half of it?
Yeah.
That's about it, huh? Okay.
We didn't get to confirm all the flag numbers or anything. It was just too large. There's
Right.
a couple other areas we saw there that were suspicious, have wetland characteristics.
There's a couple little seeps coming out, just like about 5, 6 feet up from where I originally flagged.
Okay.
Something you wouldn't normally see like in warmer weather, but it was visible because of the high groundwater.
Right. Okay.
I just have Angela, that gravestone we found out there in the woods, is that
Yes.
something we should probably get in touch with the historical commission?
They're already aware of it. Actually, if you look at the plans, it's actually on the plans.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Mr.
I-
Cleves had already found it when he was out there.
All right,
And it's
so
not
do we have-
actually a gravestone, it's just where someone,
Okay, so we don't have to, okay, so it's not,
yeah, it's not.
okay, good. I hate,
At least that I know of.
Not a grave, it's just like
Yeah.
a marker of, okay.
Just a marker of like where you get shot or something like that.
Yeah, it was something.
Understood.
Oh, boy.
I'm glad we made it out
Anthony said he was well aware.
Okay. So for Orchard Hill, make sure I get these right.
Do you have any conflicts of interest with GZA, Ecotech, or Lucas Environmental?
No.
So those prices are $1,800, $4,500, and $1,600.
No, actually, I'm familiar with all of them.
Okay.
So, if anybody would like to review these, again, there's a whole bunch of,
I can do that if you want.
all right. So I'm assuming at this point, you would like to continue until we can get our third-party review or peer review completed.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to go out with the peer reviewer,
Right.
show whoever you select what I found out there, and then confirm the flagging that's out there.
Okay.
Any adjustments that may need to be made, if they do, my estimation, they'd be minor, you know, but at least we'll have something that everybody seems to want to agree on.
Okay. Great. Anything else you'd like to discuss with Mr. Morrow at this point?
No.
Okay. Are you here for anything else tonight, Matt?
No,
That's it, okay.
no, I mean, if you want a quick update on the Tri-Town situation on Crawford Street, I can give you a quick update.
Anybody have an issue with that at this point? Okay, yeah. that's fine.
And I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. William Hannigan has been retained.
Mhm.
He is, I'm expecting at any point in time, an actual current conditions plan from him. The current conditions plan, it's all survey work. It'll show how much impact is on your side. From what he's telling me, it is on, some of it's on your side, but it's a small amount, and what they'd be looking to do is to get it out. So there would be restoration on that. Now, as soon as I get the plans, I will share them with Angela as a PDF. She can share them with you guys. You guys can decide what you want to do with it. If you want them to file an NOI, if you want Lunenburg to handle it with the NOI process, and, you know, I'm going to be out there inspecting anyway. If you
Right.
guys want to do dual, both Angela and I can watch it during the work process.
Okay,
We're expecting him to file the NOI sometime in mid to end of June,
okay,
at least for the Lunenburg side.
okay.
I also had communications with Mr. Hannig about the project. He emailed me to find out any correspondence or any information that we had on the project, so I sent him my correspondence on it, and I explained to him why we weren't issuing an enforcement order. And he said, well, he's going to file an NOI to have it removed anyways, so that's where I left that up with him. So it's a very small area,
Right,
like we assumed.
okay.
Yeah, the complicated part is that Lunenburg has a 30-foot no-touch zone and a 50-foot no-structure zone. And that has totally been violated, and there's a lot of it. So there's going to have to be a fair amount of remediation on that
Okay,
parcel, so I'm interested to see what happens.
okay. Yeah, if you could just coordinate that with Angela and we'll go
Absolutely.
from there, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you, Matt.
Have a great night, guys.
Good night.
Are you okay if we move on to the hearings?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can,
Listen,
I'll listen when I
okay.
need to, yeah.
All right. Move on to 6:15 hearing. All right. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, there'll be a public hearing to consider a request for determination by United Materials Management of Leominster, represented by Green Seal Environmental regarding minor utility work, rail track connection, site cleanup, restoration of topsoil and stabilization of historically disturbed soils, and new native plantings taking place within the riverfront. This work also includes a significant riverfront restoration. Address is 200 Tanzio Road, map 310 and 320, lots 1D and 2. Is there someone representing the applicant?
CEO of United Material Management. I thought I'd just take a minute to talk about, how we got here and why we got here. I'm also here with Laura Bouguet of Green Seal Environmental, and which she will go through many of the details of this project. I think, the reason we got here was we looked at this project and we said, is there a way to do this without being in the buffer zones? And there was the potential of that, but we discussed it with Angela, we discussed it with, I think, just about every department head in the city, and it was determined that the most responsible thing we could do, because the area has been degraded significantly in terms of stripped land, and we thought that the most responsible thing we could do is to restore it with vegetation. And as a result, we were also, it was strongly suggested, I think, by the mayor's office that they wanted this to be well landscaped. And what we have here is, this is the entrance to the property, and it's necessary, I think, for us to, this is what we end up with by restoring it. And also, the utility stubs are in this area right here. To pick them up made sense as well, as opposed to further disruption. You also have piles of material that have, some waste material that's been dumped there over the years, and as opposed to, not coming before the commission, we thought the responsible thing to do would be to clean up all of the material and landscape this well. And as a result, instead of ending up with, this stripped property, what we will end up with, is something that's landscaped and restored, and, Laura will go through those details. But I think the other appropriate thing to mention here is we're kind of in an area where we have significant topography change, and we already have, a fair degree of protection from any of the restoration that we're doing. But when I say we threw every resource at this at the request of department heads as well as the mayor's office, I think we have something like 90 shrubs and tree plantings, and we're restoring like over 45,000 square feet of area that's been degraded. So we're really, I think, not here to talk about, utilizing area as much as we are as, trying to restore and benefit the area. We also made a conscious decision. This is the rail track, and some of the members have been out there and have seen it. But there's also a track, like right in this area, that will be closer to a resource area. And instead of connecting there, we could have created further disturbance. We're making a connection back on the main line, which, not your issue, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what it does is it allows us to be able to do any of the work we're doing with the track is in the existing constructed rail pathway, and we completely leave any of the buffer zones by the time we get off of this trail. So I think we've taken just about throwing about every resource we can into doing restoration and into doing the right thing on this project. And I'll go through the details.
Thank you. For the record, Laura Bouguet, Green Seal Environmental, I'm the engineer for the project. Previously mentioned, we're here for an RDA for minor work in degraded riverfront area, as well as activities that are exempt under 310 CMR 10.002. Scott briefly mentioned, although our project does include some minor work in riverfront area that is currently degraded, we are significantly improving existing conditions on the site. I know that the commission has recently issued an order of resource area delineation for the subject property, so you're probably familiar with the site, but I still would like to start the presentation with just a brief overview of existing conditions for the public process. So subject property is about 13 and a half acres in size, located at 200 Tanzio Road. The property lines are indicated by the solid black lines here. To the south of the property is industrial property, some developed, some undeveloped. Along the western property line is the existing CSX rail line with other industrial properties immediately abutting it. On this sheet, the very northern portion of the property is shown up in this corner. There's a match line here. There is undeveloped industrial property located to the east and the north of these property lines here. The property does encompass the existing 125-foot wide electrical easement that exists here with the transmission lines. And then Tanzio Road is located here to the east with other industrial properties across the street. Resource areas exist on the south side of the site as well as the north, which is shown here. On the south, we have an unnamed brook shown in the light blue. There's bordering vegetated wetlands, generally shown in green. There is also bordering land subject to flooding, which is indicated by this dashed black line in here. 100-foot buffer zone to BBW is highlighted in the pink color. And there's riverfront area as well. The 100-foot inner riparian area is shown in the orange, and the 200-foot outer riparian area is in the blue. To the north of the site, we have Fallbrook, and basically the same resource areas, PLSF, buffer zone, BBW, and riverfront area, all in the same colors. In both cases for these two brooks, they both are culverted and pass underneath the existing CSX rail line. The site itself is disturbed. The limits of disturbance basically extend from the existing tree line to the south to about the electrical easement. The site was previously mined for soils. Topsoil was stripped. There's existing debris piles on the site, which are highlighted here in this gray color. As you can see, some of these debris piles are located within the 200-foot riverfront area and approaching that 100-foot wetland buffer zone. As Scott mentioned, there are some significant grade changes towards the west and the south of the site. On the west side, there's a hill here that goes up to the CSX rail. It's about a 15-foot difference that the CSX rail line is higher. Similarly, in the southwest corner, there's a hill here that's vegetated. This is about 25 feet in height, which creates a ridge along this southern line of disturbed area. The proposed development consists of construction of a new building, pavement and driveways surrounding the building. There's a rail spur as well as rail siding for the site, as the facility will be served by rail. We'll also be constructing a stormwater management control system for all the stormwater over the impervious surfaces, as well as some landscaping and fencing. As Scott has mentioned, him and I both wanted to design the site completely out of jurisdictional areas from a permitting standpoint, as well as I'm a fellow commissioner as well. However, we ran into some constraints, and that wasn't entirely possible. So at the site entrance, there are existing utility stubs that were installed when Tanzio Road was constructed back in 2009. Those stubs are within the 200-foot riverfront area. So we'll need to do some temporary disturbance to connect our utilities to that. I'd like to point out that this area is currently in degraded riverfront area. Similarly, we propose about 400 square feet of pavement for the site entrance in this same area where the utility stubs are. Our constraints there is an existing utility pole and a hydrant, which we have put our site entrance in. It's the minimum width we need for vehicles to enter and exit the site safely. Also, we're proposing fence at the site entrance as well as landscaping islands. The fence, not only do we need for site security, but we also need to meet the city's zoning ordinance for screening and barriers at the property lines. And as Scott had mentioned, at our technical review meeting back in December for the project, the mayor expressed his wishes to have the site entrance here be well landscaped, be well screened, as well as look good and be aesthetically pleasing. So the fence that we have proposed is within the 200-foot riverfront area. It also extends into the 100-foot buffer zone. It does not extend into the 100-foot inner riparian zone. However, under the WPA, installation of fences is an actual exempt activity. The landscaping islands that we'll be installing, one of the islands will be in the 200-foot riverfront area. Again, this is a currently degraded area, and the plantings there will blend with our overall planting scheme that we have for site stabilization and final restoration. We'll also be cleaning up the existing piles that are in the riverfront area that I pointed to earlier. We'll be tying in our proposed grading into existing grades as necessary, just in this area, in the riverfront area. Again, degraded, currently degraded. We'll also be adding about 4,400 square feet of pavement within this outer reaches of the riverfront area in this location. We did look at pulling the pavement back within the riverfront area here. However, that made it really tight around this building in consideration of traffic flow and emergency services. We needed to extend the pavement out for safety reasons. To the north, our rail spur connection point is located within the 100-foot buffer zone, as well as the 100-foot inner riparian zone. The connection work that we need to do to connect into the existing rail and build our spur is going to be contained entirely from the connection point to the 200-foot riverfront area, is going to be contained entirely within the degraded and managed right-of-way for CSX. As Scott had the pictures up here earlier, as you can see, here's the rail line. This is our approximate connection point. We'll be installing rails just inside these existing rails, or inside this one, outside here, to start to pull off of this rail. But as you can see, they have a 15 to 20 foot wide right-of-way in which they maintain and keep it clear. All our work within jurisdictional areas will occur within this disturbed and maintained area. As Scott also mentioned earlier, there is an existing rail spur located here that we considered connecting into instead. However, this rail spur is located closer to the resource areas and would involve additional disturbance closer to the resource areas and outside of that already disturbed area. I'd just like to go back and note again that all the stormwater from the impervious surfaces for the new development will be collected, treated, and infiltrated in accordance with the Massachusetts stormwater standards. We meet the stormwater standards fully for new development. We will also have construction phase erosion and sedimentation controls for the project to make sure that there's no construction impacts to resource areas. We'll also need to file a NIPD's construction general permit and prepare a SWIP, stormwater pollution prevention plan, prior to construction. Just like to wrap up, brief overview of our restoration plans. Sheet L1 of your plans set shows the different areas that we will be either restoring or stabilizing. So the yellow areas on our plans, and my plan is colored, yours just has the hatching. So the yellow, the blue, and the 2 purple areas are all restoration. We have some restoration within the 100-foot wetland buffer. This has a different planting schedule than the others, and they're all very specific to the area they're in, the slopes, and what we're trying to achieve in each area. And then the green shown here is general stabilization of bare soils and vegetation enhancement. So as I outlined in the narrative of the RDA, all these activities are exempt from filing an NOI or are actual exempt activities in themselves, such as the installation of the fencing, as well as the restoration work in jurisdictional areas. Also, because we are redeveloping in riverfront area, we are well under the thresholds for redevelopment in the riverfront area, with only 4,800 square feet permanent redevelopment in impervious surface within the allowable area of 62,700 square feet. So we have 62,000 square feet of degraded area, which we could redevelop, and we're only redeveloping about 4,800 square feet, so significantly less. So that wraps up my presentation, and we welcome any questions.
Do you guys know, I know you have a planting schedule, and I saw in there, you were going to choose native plantings and stuff. Just wondering, do you have an idea of what you plan to restore with yet?
Yeah, on the restoration key, it shows the different plants that we have.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that.
No worries. And then I believe it's sheet L2 following it, shows the key, L3.
Shows what you're going to,
Shows what each of those symbols are. So we have red maples, we have river birches, we have pin oaks.
Great.
For deciduous. We also have balsam fir, eastern white pine, eastern hemlock, for more screening and winter landscaping aesthetics.
No, this is perfect. Sorry, I didn't even notice this, so thank you.
Just a question or a comment. It says waste handling, so everything's gonna be contained in the building itself, right?
Yes.
All the activity?
Yes, all the activities, new transfer station. All the activity will be inside the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my only comment is, I think this is great, the amount of work you're putting into restoring and staying out of the resource area. It's not often we get a lot of projects that, most people are doing anything they can to inch as close as they can and maximize the use of the property. And this is
I have a long history in Leominster. My family lives here, my kids live here, I've been around here for a long time, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. So, any handling activity happens in a controlled environment in this building. It's been vetted out by the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, the DEP, through significant comment periods, and then it also went through Board of Health hearings, Board of Health review. They had third-party review for the city of Leominster to see that we met, all conditions. And went to the level of sound tests, traffic tests, things that aren't really relevant, I think, to this necessarily. But you asked, so I wanted to let you know that we went through a very extensive process. We don't, I throw everything at a project. We like to do a good job, and the bottom line is I know this is a conservation commission, and this, what I'm about to say may not be relevant, but you would be happy to know that our business isn't, people think of us as just waste. We recycled 28 million pounds of wood last year to be able to make particle board out of. We recycled 29 million pounds of aggregates that we took out of the waste stream that wouldn't be landfilled. We recycled 15 million pounds of metals and different grades of metals that went back, into the system, and another 50,000, tons or so of other materials that we use for some form of beneficial use. What's going to end up happening is some of this, we deal with a lot of construction material, that will go for further processing where we have a bunch of machines that separate that material, and our whole business plan is to reduce waste that goes into landfills and try to recover material. And what's happened in the state is that half of the capacity is at capacity, and they're closing, and there's no place to bring material, and it's traveling over 350 miles, and every ton of material that moves on the rail system reduces carbon emissions by over 4 times versus a truck. And we do send trucks right now past Syracuse to sites because it's the only option. And the resource that this will be for the community is off the charts in terms of just how do you find a place with this kind of that hasn't been developed with this kind of headroom to be able to bring that track in. We have the curvatures that we need to have in order to comply with CSX and the topography changes and the things that have to take place. It's just such a unique situation. I was like amazed that we found it, and surrounded by all industry with highway access. So we're pretty excited to be a part of the solution for Leominster.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I didn't mention is where we tie in to the existing rail. We could not pull that any further south out of the resource areas because of those slope and the curvature requirements by CSX. So we did look at that, but we were pretty stuck as to where we were tying in.
Well, there was another issue with that too. We don't add train trips necessarily. They come here already a couple of times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, and they just pick up additional cars that are completely enclosed. So by starting where we have and having the storage that we have, it minimizes trips. And, we're consummate permitters in the environmental field, so we are very cognizant of those issues and how we promote them.
Any other questions or comments?
I had a comment.
Yes.
I just want to say if the commission, like Larry said, is in support of this, maybe we could vote to pen a letter to the planning board, because they are going before the planning board on May 20th.
Yes.
I'm planning on attending the meeting, as well as a couple other departments, if you guys feel that's, I do believe this is really important for our community and for our future.
Do you want me to open up to the public? Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? What are we looking for here? Ann-Rad, right?
RDA.
RDA. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this RDA? Second time and final time. All right, I declare the public hearing closed. Do we have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend that we issue negative determination number 5 for this project. The area described in the request is subject to protection under the Act. Since the work described there meets the requirements for the following exemption as specified in the Act, the regulations, no notice of intent is required. Proposed fencing, landscaping, riverfront area restoration are exempt activities per 310 CMR 10.02 2B1. Other proposed site work is exempt under 310 CMR 10.02 B2.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to issue a -5 determination, and just as long as we reference the plan sets that are provided, I have no problem.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
We do appreciate the work you put into this.
Yeah, it's really great.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, there'll be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent by Crown Eagle LLC for the construction of a 27-lot residential subdivision with approximately 21 feet of roadway with utilities and grading. The work takes place within a 100-foot wetland buffer zone, address Willard Street, map 398, lots 3A, 3B, and 9. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Yes, sir.
For the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering, here on behalf of Crown Eagle LLC for a notice of intent relative to the work being requested for a definitive subdivision off of Willard Street. Just to orientate ourselves on the plan, we have Willard Street that runs along the bottom of the page with Crabtree Lane being further down to the south of the site. And Lake Simonset is actually located north of the property itself. The resource areas that are currently located on the property are isolated pretty much to a bordering vegetated wetland series, or several series actually, that run along the western property line. A smaller isolated area near the north.
Apologies.
Along the north central portion of the property, and off to the west, which extends further east off locus. There are several certified vernal pools located throughout the site or on the plans. We have walked the line with the agent to review the locations and figure out which ones are which. There are some potential vernal pools that don't quite match up with what's actually out on the site, but we're depicting the GIS locations of the vernal pools themselves. In addition, there is a border land subject to flooding per the current FEMA zone map. That floodplain elevation is set at around 472, but when you actually look at the topographic information on the property, 472 contour never actually develops. So graphically, yes, the property is located within the floodplain, but there are no real floodplains on the property themselves. So that's the general resource area delineations on the property. As part of the project, we'll be constructing a 2,100 square foot or long road that will loop through the property off of Willard Street. And end with a cul-de-sac near the southern portion of the property with a secondary road to bisect it to create essentially a loop configuration. We're currently going through the definitive subdivision process with the planning board and working with them to finalize the layout and design of everything. So as you can probably see, most of the work that's being proposed is going to be located along the outer limits of the project. The main area through here is not jurisdictional to any of the wetlands. So we're going to kind of skim over this a little bit and focus more on the area that we're looking at. Stormwater systems are going to be utilizing deep sump catch basins and water quality units to provide the required TSS removal and treatment. The soils on this property are primarily Hinkley soils, which are really well drained soil. It's pretty much sand. We have performed soil testing out on the site with DPW, and most of the holes we dug down to about 15 feet and never hit groundwater. So it's a very sandy material. As such, we're using exfiltration as one of the means of mitigation of the stormwater. So all the systems on the property do utilize exfiltration or provide the required recharge under the stormwater management regulations. What that does is it actually drastically limits the discharge rates coming off of the property, off the development themselves. Stormwater detention facilities are primarily going to be underground storage located within the interior portion of the property. And they'll be set within drainage easements to ensure that the future tenants or homeowners do not disturb or touch this area at all. There's one going to be located at the intersection of the two roadways, one in the bend of the roadway. All of this ties in together and ultimately discharges to a second or a single detention basin that eventually discharges towards the wetlands. But the way this is designed right now, this basin only discharges during the 25-year storm event. So it's a storm event greater than 5 inches of rainfall in 24 hours, which is a pretty substantial rainfall event. So as part of the overall permitting process and the review, we did meet with Lake Samoset Association to review some of their concerns relative to the environmental impacts of everything. A few of the key points that we took away from that meeting was that we were able to reconfigure the cul-de-sac roadway to be offset further into the property itself. What that does is it allows us to keep pulling away the residential houses away from that wetland series. If you were to go out to the site now, there's actually a quite substantial drop-off from the flatter, more plateau area down towards the wetland series. The way we've set up the house locations and the general grading of the site is to maintain that crest of that ridge so that we're not disturbing the slope as much as we can. Therefore, we're trying to maintain that current stabilization with the existing vegetation and everything like that. In addition to that, because of the heavily developed area and the environmental concerns and wildlife in the area, we're proposing to place conservation easements along the back portion of the properties around the limit of clearing. And those conservation easements will be recorded with the deed of the properties and be permanently demarcated in the field with a line of boulders, which we're anticipating being found throughout the site because this is New England and there's plenty of boulders around. In addition, all the properties that are located along this rear portion of the wetland will have their roof drains discharged into a dry well system to help eliminate and disconnect that runoff from the rear portions of the houses before they get to the wetland, just to try to minimize the overall impact as much as possible from the actual houses themselves. So what we're doing permitting-wise right now is we're proposing or trying to get approvals to construct essentially the entire roadway system, drainage infrastructure, and general grading of the area. And as the houses are being built, additional notice of intent will be required as necessary for these additional houses. So what's before you tonight is purely just the subdivision roadway and essentially the clearing and setting of that conservation easement along that rear wetland series. And that conservation easement also continues through into this area too. That's the general gist of the project. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So I do have a question. So for the vernal pools, so you said that these GIS locations, are these locations that someone you guys had go out in the field do, or are these like GIS locations or natural heritage?
They're GIS locations. So we walked the site. There are indications within these areas. Angela was with me that day. Of those locations that seem to be consistent with what you would expect for a vernal pool. These vernal pools are all isolated within the wetland series, and there's no proposed alteration to any of the wetlands. So we're compliant with the work being proposed around the vernal pools. Within the Wetlands Act, you have a 100-foot offset from the vernal pool within the wetland itself, but it doesn't extend beyond the wetland. So.
Right, yeah, no, I know that. I'm just curious. I think it would be good, just my own personal opinion, because especially if there has been concerns raised about wildlife in the area anyway, I think doing a conservation easement is really great. Is that it would be nice to know if those locations can actually be pinned down. I think it just gives a better, it's easier to look at it and really show, like, yep, we can show you this is where we had a vernal pool survey done, this is where it is, and have that confirmed with natural heritage, so you can really show that, yes, you're outside that 100-foot zone. If anybody has other opinions, obviously, Angela, you were out there, but that would be my suggestion, just especially if there are concerns about the wildlife in the area, is that it would be nice to show where those actually are if we can.
I think you have the letter from Mr. Lands. I believe he said he did certify them through the National Heritage, and that's where the GIS is from his certification.
I will read that letter.
And it'll be read in aloud.
Well, so my question is, and so are these potential vernal pools, or are these certified?
These are certified.
Okay, all right, I heard potential, and that's where my concern came in.
The issue was that there was, when we looked at the map, there was a certified and then a potential, like, very close to it, so we went together and we looked at them, and we were like,
Yeah.
they're here. I think the reason Chris had wanted to do that, because if it was just potential that actually was a vernal pool, that they would have, I'm assuming Chris wanted to certify it. But since it was all basically the same thing, probably from multiple people going out there.
Sure. I would then, if those are certified with natural heritage and we're gonna be out of there, I think some flagging might be good, just to really demarcate where they are. Just because with construction and stuff, you never know. I understand that we're outside that 100-foot, but just something that shows, just flagging
Where
that,
they are.
that shows so that anybody who's even just working down on that slope, you know, or if you're in the woods, you can see that that's a protected area,
Yeah, and
would be good.
there's going to be erosion control measures put along the limit of work, so that's going to be pretty much the permanent demarcation of the field during
Yeah.
construction. And prior to construction, typically we'll go back out and reestablish any of the wetland flags that have been torn down
Sure.
while they're doing the erosion control staking measures. I like to have faith in the contractor that they're not going to be blatantly disregarding the erosion control, the plans themselves, and going into that wetland series.
I would also love to have faith in the contractor. I just have seen enough of this just in my own job that I find very, very clear boundaries for contractors are a really good idea, regardless of their reputation, because you just never know. Sometimes they have different people coming onto the site, and I just I don't have a problem with it if we're very far away, we have that easement and stuff. I just think very clear boundaries are better than assuming that they're gonna follow the plans.
My favorite thing in the world of boulders, if we have any, I'm just thinking, it would be nice to have some sort of demarcation on these properties between development and resource areas.
Like the wetlands.
Like the wetlands, yeah, but even if we could get some markers out there, like something that defines, primarily near the areas where in the wetland areas where the vernal pools are, if there's some sort of, if you can get some big rocks or whatever, just kind of throw them in corners, put up something to stop people from slowly making their way through the
Yeah, do
wetland.
these property lines, do some of these actually extend back
Yeah, so-
and include some of the wetlands?
Yeah, so a lot of these properties do take a lot of the wetlands. So that conservation easement, the boulder line will be set on that line. And I'm sure we can coordinate getting some of the wetland placards that the commission uses and put them along the physical delineation line so that they're kind of there permanently rather than flagging, which is probably deteriorating even now. It's only been a year.
Yeah, because we don't want a barrier, obviously, but we want something permanent to demarcate the. Now, where is the floodplain on this?
The floodplain is actually located right here. So if you look at the FEMA line, you have your zone A, which comes through here. It's kind of offset just because of how FEMA maps work, but if you look at it technically, it kind of goes in through this peninsula valley kind of thing that comes in through this portion of the property and like a thumb area over here. So technically, it's kind of following that configuration. And then you have the zone B, which is the 500-year floodplain that extends further up. But as I said before, the zone A is numbered, so there's a flood determination made in that area of 472, but
There's nothing going on.
472 never develops. So it's actually non-existent, and it's actually more isolated with the Lake Samuels.
And you're not even gonna be working in that area?
And we're not doing any work in that area at all. The bottom, the wetland line in this area pretty much runs along the 474 contour, so there's still a 2-foot delta between there.
We had a project a while back that involved boulders, and we had a fairly lengthy discussion about what a boulder is in terms of size. And you're saying that these boulders are going to be found on the site because New England's full of them. What is the size of these boulders, and what is the distance between the boulders that's going to delineate this conservation restriction?
In the past, we've seen 3-foot boulders placed on around a 10-foot spacing, 15-foot spacing,
So that's what you're proposing, 3-foot boulders, 10-foot spacing?
in that size range, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we know what we're dealing with. Not that anybody's gonna drive through there.
Yeah, 'cause
As in the other project.
there's also about a 10-foot to 20-foot delta in elevation from the woodland to the top of this ridge in certain areas. So it's a substantial drop off. So
So no sledding in the wintertime there.
unless you're going to hit a tree.
I don't sled.
I want to read into the record this letter about the vernal pools on the site. Stated May 13th, 2019. It says, greetings. I write not in opposition of the proposed Willard Street development, but in support of the maximum protection of the certified vernal pools associated upland within the scope of the project. Please note that these pools were certified with state-listed endangered species prior to the current ownership. Within the Wetlands Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act states no change, temporary or permanent. Please consider the attached map. There's some maps here attached. Several of the vernal pools within the map have already been destroyed, resulting in total breeding and habitat loss. Proposed area of the project contains not only vernal pools, but also the last remaining passage of species from herps to bobcat. It is a final and critical link between the conservation land along Fall Brook through the proprietary habitat extending to Shoalin Farms and beyond. For the record, I am the person who submitted the data that led to the certification of the pools and additional data leading to the habitat designation. If I can be any assistance, please not hesitate to call. This protection is well within the interest of the Act. Thank you for your time and consideration. Peter J. Lanza.
And Mr. Lanza also dropped off a disc in the office with pictures of different species that he's found in the vernal pools before it was in its current ownership.
Is there any estimated or priority habitat that covers this area at all, or just the vernal pools? I didn't have a chance to look at the layers, so.
There is a priority habitat
That way.
further that way.
Okay.
So it's not located on the locus.
Okay. And then I guess my only other question, when you were out there, how big are these vernal pools? Like, are they?
A lot of them are 15, 20 feet.
Yeah, like 10 to 20 feet, I'd say.
Yeah, and
I'm
this
really
one.
bad at measuring with my eyes.
Yeah, so I know this one was the smaller one, located near the tip of the wetland series.
Yeah. So how close is that to your proposed line?
The tree line sits around the 50-foot buffer, so there's still 50 feet of vegetation between that and that. And that you also have almost the 20-foot delta in elevation drop.
So it's 50 feet between where that dot is and where the tree line is?
From the wetland line, C34 to the tree line is about 50 feet.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that we've adjusted the location and configuration of the lots in the subdivision is to maintain this ridge, because it sits around the 492 contour. All along here, it kind of dies out further north. But that 492 contour is essentially the edge of that drop-off. So we're trying to maintain that so that during construction or post-construction and everything like that, that stays stabilized in its current state, because it would be very difficult to reestablish that.
Right,
slope.
right. So just because of kind of how close this is, and since these are already certified and we know that they're there, it just goes back to my thing. I feel very strongly that we should be able to, and it's fine if you want to show it on the plan, actually show the limits of those vernal pools and just show the buffer off of them.
So that can be kind of challenging because vernal pools can grow and they can shrink. Like I do know the past pictures of the vernal pools that they were a lot larger in different seasons and a lot smaller in other seasons. So that's not really, we can do it for what it is now, but it might change over time.
Right,
That's
no,
the
I
thing.
understand that. I feel like we're pretty
Well, I mean, it's,
close.
they're gonna be bigger
Yeah.
in now anyway, that's the whole point, so we wanna get them, you wanna
Yeah.
market it at the
No,
peak
I just want to make sure that it's not
Yeah.
gonna be permanent. It's not going to go on. Like,
No, I understand that it can change, but it's not going to change so drastically that, you know, it's not going to be a 30-foot vernal pool one year and then like a 2-foot wide vernal pool the next year.
No, but what I'm saying is that because these are good, the delineations are good for 3 years. So if we approve the plans and he has the delineation at one point and then, you know, 5 years later, they want to come back, they want to use the same delineations, they may not be accurate. So it might be good for us to say that, you know, in the order conditions or on the plans, they're just approximate for this time.
Well,
For
delineations are
construction
only good for
purposes.
3 years anyway, after
Yeah.
that, they asked that they would be redone anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's fine. I just think it would be good to have some, for us right now and for our approval of the plans as everything sits right now, I think it would be good for us to at least be able to see where that line is and where that buffer is, just to be thorough in protecting them. I think that's important.
I absolutely agree. I just want to make sure that was on the
Yep.
record that they could change.
Yep, absolutely, and you can put that in the, I think it's important to do what we can to really show where they are.
And to that note, I will warn the commission that this vernal pool, we went out last July, was it July, June?
Yeah, July.
Yeah, right before the rains came from this past fall. And this area was substantially flooded just because of hummocky and everything like that. So this vernal pool would be very difficult to demarcate in the field currently. Granted, we've had a lot of rain the last couple of weeks, so just a statement rather than anything else as a precautionary statement that some of these are going to be very difficult to permanently or at least market in the field just because of their submerged nature at this point in time.
Sure. But I think we made a response to market or construction purposes this with wetland flags around it so that if someone throwing stuff over, they know not to put it there.
Yeah, I think for our approval, that has to be a condition that it be marked so we can see where they need to stay out of.
Chris, that outfall, you mentioned a 25-year storm frequency.
Yep.
What kind of a rate is coming off of that?
It's very minimal, even during the 25, I believe it's less than one CFS.
One CFS.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers right in front of me at this time, but I know it's very minimal. And to help alleviate any potential blowout or erosion going further downhill, we'll put a level spread berm at that outlet. So you'll have a 1-foot berm just at the edge of it. Helps spread out that velocity in water, so it's more widespread distance.
And what is the distance from that certified vernal pool to the outfall of that spreader? It looks like 130 feet?
Yeah, it'd be about 100 feet-ish. Yep. It's, the level spreader device is hanging around the 40 mark. This is at 40 scale. Yeah, so you're looking at about 100 plus feet from the vernal pool.
And the slope is what?
In this area,
Yeah.
the natural grade is around 5%.
5%.
I kind of have a comment, it's not really about this, it's sort of like, if we can think about this for a living, just for future. A lot of times when we have projects like this where there's steep slopes behind houses, what happens is people come back, 10 years later and they say, well, now, I used to have 50 feet in my backyard, and because of erosion, it's down to 20 feet. And then what they do is they want to go in and they want to go into the wetland and put in like some kind of retaining wall and just fill that whole hillside in. So I think we need to come up with something that indicates that, that there's no further.
That's where that conservation easement comes into play. The conservation easement's intent is to maintain that natural corridor. So, and it's going to run with the deed. It's going to be recorded right in the deed itself. So, they legally couldn't do that.
If we can word it somehow too that, because they when these things come in, they say, well, this is an emergency. I have children and their swing set's going to fall. It's like there needs to be something in there that, I want to make sure that, for a commission down the road that we're not looking at, putting a retaining wall in a wetland so these people, don't lose their house. I mean, it needs to be, something that's.
Yeah, and I think the easement is going to go a long way, just because it's a legal component of the deed can't go away.
Yeah.
And when it gets approved by the commission and the planning board, that easement is going to be recorded on the plan of land, so that whenever somebody actually goes and tries to find deed information, say 10, 15, 20 years down the road, they're going to pull up that plan of land. There's going to be a conservation easement written physically on that plan, and in that deed, that's going to outline, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Okay, so we could actually ask that something be written in there if we need, we'll ask something a little additional.
Yeah.
At that time. Okay.
Speaking of something additional, would it be possible to put a mention on the properties that have the vernal pools on them, put that on their deeds as well? When they come before us, obviously, would that be something that's possible?
Maybe we can put that vocabulary within the actual conservation.
That's what I was thinking, something of that nature.
More of a blanket statement.
Yeah, just so
rather
that
than-
people are aware that they're there when they go to,
Yeah, because I don't want
house to work.
lot number 7 to. Number 7 obviously has to deal with it,
Yeah.
but like lot number
I think all those, yeah.
10 doesn't really have to deal with that issue.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
it's
just
more of a
ones
blanket
that-
statement that there are resource areas that need to be protected, and you can't touch that because of the conservation easement kind of thing.
Well, we could make it an ongoing condition.
That's what I was thinking,
For
too,
the certificate of compliance, that a copy of the, the lot, if the specific lot has a vernal pool, that it be
Yeah.
included.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah, we can
something
do
of
that
that
on an
nature.
individual lot
Just so it's
basis.
constantly there.
And that way they can't say they didn't know. Because that's what they always say, oh, my lawyer didn't tell me that, or the builder didn't tell me that.
It's actually really challenging because a lot of times I have people call and the realtors don't have to tell them unless they pay for it. So if they don't pay for the extra information, they don't get the extra information.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a way to kind of avoid that in the future.
Any other questions, comments? Anybody in the audience like to speak on this notice of intent?
I would.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ed Himmelin. I'm at 72 Lincoln Drive by Lake Samoset, and I'm also on the board of directors for the Lake Samoset Association. We've been before everyone before. And Pete Lanza was going to try and be here tonight, but he couldn't make it. But he's the one that certified those vernal pools. And I just wanted to add that I wrote a letter yesterday, so I just wanted to give everybody the letter that I did. And this echoes the letter that we had given to the planning board, just about some of our concerns. We did have a great meeting with Chris, and they did make changes in that plan that we like. We think the plan is better. I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
I think the plan is better than what we had seen originally. We still have concerns. One of those concerns is the vernal pools that everybody's talking about, because the plan shows 3, and Mass GIS and the assessors and everything I found anyplace else shows 4, but when they went out, they couldn't find it. So I would like the Conservation Commission to make a determination whether or not the certified vernal pool does exist or doesn't exist.
Thanks.
And I think it should be on the map that Pete gave you. Does it show the floor? Because I have copies of that map. I'll give it to you anyway. So that's a concern about that vernal pool. And of course, all the vernal pools are interconnected, so the loss of one vernal pool will affect the other three. So it'd be really good if somehow that could be resolved before the approval, or as part of the approval process. We either decide it doesn't exist or it does exist. But so far, now it's in a gray area where nobody knows whether this vernal pool is there or not, except that it is on Mass GIS.
Thank you.
And you can see the 4 vernal pools with the little salamanders there. Not mine, not mine. That's Mass GIS.
Here?
Yeah, that open area. So, Mr. Himlin is correct. There are 4 maps, and when we walked the site, the location based on GIS puts that vernal pool actually in the middle of this property's lawn, which doesn't make any kind of sense. There's something there. It slopes. There's no depression. But what it does show is a potential vernal pool located pretty much right smack in the B-series wetland, which is a smaller, isolated wetland, disconnected from the A-series, which is located to the east of the property, and the major C-series that runs along the western property line. Because we figure that this potential vernal pool might actually be the certified vernal pool, but because of the location delta, we can't first say 100% that this is actually the certified vernal pool. What we've done is we've actually pulled back the house locations to be outside the 100-foot buffer zone of this area. Put the roof drains again on the back to help disconnect that impervious area from the roofs. And again, instituted a conservation easement pretty much that hugs the 50-foot buffer zone to that wetland. So we're trying to protect this area as much as we can because we believe that this may be the certified vernal pool, but per GIS it is not.
And I think what Chris says makes sense, but the thing is somewhere in this process there should be an identification of the vernal pool. Either it's there or it's not. And if it's there but it's not marked and nobody knows where it is, I can tell you one thing: it ain't going to be there in 10 years because it will go. It'll be lost. So that would be the thing. I think if it is there, it should. I mean, it was certified. Pete Lanza was the one who certified it. He identified all of those, and that there should be some way of resolving that. As far as, you know what I'm saying?
What I think may happen is that 4th one that's in the lawn is most likely that one, because GIS is never 100% accurate, but when we went out, it was completely bone dry. It was a pit of poison ivy.
I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where it might be, and I couldn't. but
Yeah, well,
that's the thing. It should be, because we should try and protect that pool.
And we do our site visit, now would be the time to see anyways.
And again, our intent with the easement protection is to protect that area.
But can that be put as a condition for that it will be identified? That's my main concern.
Yeah, like, has there been any contact with Natural Heritage at all about these vernal pools?
Because this is the first time that the hearing's been open.
Aside from just the GIS, so I would say the best thing we could do is get in touch with Natural Heritage. If all of these pools were certified, and granted, like you said, they expand, something could happen, they could decide not to come back and spawn that year, and maybe it's not a vernal pool, but I think someone, at least just a discussion with someone from Natural Heritage, because they may be able to tell us, yep, we went out there, we certified that vernal pool, we went back to check it the following year, maybe 2017, and it was no longer there. They would have a lot more they should at least have more detailed information than we would be able to have.
That would be great. So that's one. The other thing was on the stormwater management system. And I think the stormwater management system, I read through that whole, it wasn't a whole lot of reading, but I did go through the whole thing today. It's a good report. I did have a couple of questions on it, and the main question that we have is that the homeowner association, which is going to be responsible for the operations and maintenance of this stormwater system, and it's quite extensive. It's a lot of manholes. The city is not taking care of it. The city is giving it to the homeowner association, but it includes infiltration basins, it includes hydrodynamic separators, catch basins, underground storage systems, and particularly with regard to the underground detention storage system by StormTech, and I can give you some more information on it if you want, but the concern there is that if the catch basins and the hydrodynamic separators, the hydroworks units, are not maintained by the homeowner association, that, because one of the things, if you go, in all of the manuals are that the underground detention system, that big flaw is that they can clog. And that's the big concern. So if you're going to give it to a private homeowner association, to make sure that they've got the financial ability to do that. And as part of the stormwater report and the stormwater checklist, they're supposed to have a budget. I mean, it's there. It's part of Standard 9. DEP requires it, but so far there is no budget, and there's no idea what it's going to cost to take care of these things. And if there's a funding mechanism for taking care of these devices, because otherwise they won't work. I'm part of a homeowner association. I know what goes on with homeowner associations. If you're going to hand over to these people, take money out of your pocket to take care of these things that are underground, you can pretty well figure out what's happening. So that to me is a crucial issue in terms of the overall approval process by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. Otherwise, it's a setup for a failure.
So in response, that's one of my notes I had here. Under the Wetland Protection Act, we can't really require anything for homeowner associations. We can't require financial backings, but the Planning Board, as part of their subdivision regulations, they can require financial backings before the Planning Board approval, I believe it is.
It's for the bonds pulled.
Before the bond's pulled. So that's something that the commission can, vote to write a letter on in support of, just to let them know that, we really need those back, to support our ability to protect the resource areas. Because we can put anything in the order of conditions, but since we don't have the wetland bylaw, any wetland ordinances or bylaws, it's really hard for us to enforce.
Now, have you considered alternatives, putting in?
Just because of the slopes on the back portion of everything, the use of anything else to capture, because there's a substantial amount of impervious on the property, it just greatly diminishes the capacity of the subdivision. To Mr. Himlin's comment, we are currently working on preparing a draft homeowners association to provide to the planning board. We've been in talks with the DPW. DPW's intent is that they're going to maintain the catch basins and do the street sweeping and everything like that. And the homeowners association would be isolated to the hydrodynamic separators, the underground storage, and the detention basins. So pretty much everything that's off the right of way of the road that requires special treatment. And with the regular maintenance, the hydrodynamic separator should capture a significant portion of the sediment if it does bypass the deep sumps because the city neglects them for some reason. And there are operation and maintenance plans in order to help clean out these storm tech chambers, essentially like a reverse grouting or pipe can't think of the word, sorry. It's a jet that they put down inside there. It's on wheels. It goes back and forth, and it essentially pushes all the sediment to the front portion of the chamber system, and it gets sucked out similar to a deep sump catch basin. It just removes that sediment. So there are mechanisms to allow for the cleaning of that if it does become fouled. And those storm tech chambers do have inspection ports, so that when the the maintenance company comes in to make sure that everything's being taken care of. They can inspect it and check the sediment depths within the systems themselves.
So the city will take care of the catch basins?
For our conversations, yes, they will take care of the catch basins.
Oh, that's a big difference. The city does a good job on the catch basins. I mean, they get real good about it. And they're also under the federal permit, the EMS permit. So they have to maintain those in good quality, and they have to report on them. So that's a real plus. But that was my concern, that you get the sediment back into the underground systems, and then they're gonna, because if they get clogged, ain't nobody gonna fix it. Nobody's gonna fix those. So those are the main concerns that we had in terms of the stormwater system, which it looks good. The thing that we would hope that, and I mentioned this at the planning board meeting, is that the homeowner agreement, and it would be great if the Conservation Commission would add that in your note to the planning board, is they specify who's going to be responsible for this. Because if you just say a homeowner agreement and nobody is specified for being responsible, I think it's very unlikely that anybody's going to jump up and volunteer. So I think it has to be part of the homeowner agreement. It has to be specified very clearly who's going to take care of that. So those are the two main things. I had wanted to get an idea of what the nutrient loading would be, particularly in terms of phosphorus, because Lake Samoset is borderline eutrophic. And just to put that in context, 10 pounds of phosphorus will produce 5,000 pounds of weeds and algae, and the Lake Samoset Association has to pay for that. We have to pay for the treatment, and it costs us a lot of money relatively to do that. So we're really concerned about how much phosphorus is going in, but coming off of the system and going into the lake. When I did the calculations, and I used that simple method that I talked to you about, Chris, and I did the calculations, that your infiltration basin made a huge difference, because it went from, my calculation was 30 pounds per year to 10 pounds per year. But the other thing that would be very helpful in all of that would be if the Conservation Commission, and there is already, I believe, if I understood things right, that there was going to be restriction on the homeowners about what they could use for fertilizer and so forth. And I think a big thing is, how close they cut the lawn to the ground. But there's a whole lot of things that the homeowners can do to keep the amount of phosphorus going in. And every little bit of phosphorus, it's less weeds and less chance for cyanobacteria. And we've had blue-green algae bloom at the lake. And as I think people here know, there's been a lot of lakes that are being lost because of harmful algae blooms. So whatever can be done by the Conservation Commission in terms of requirements that reduce the potential for phosphorus, that would be great. We would really appreciate that. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the audience like to speak on this notice of intent? Yes, sir.
My name is P. Latches, and this area is very delicate. And I've heard much about this committee. That some people on the committee are very good. They know what they're doing, and you have to. I hope you do everything you can, because this is a delicate area, to make sure there's conditions and responsibilities to go along with this, because like people have said, if it's not done right, years down the line, this whole thing can backfire and be a disaster. I'm glad the city's taking the responsibility of the detention center. Is that part of the condition, or are they just gonna, that's set, permanent, that they're gonna do? If it is, that's good. The second thing is, Can you vote on this without because we don't know where the road's going right now. The road was supposed to be moved over. They asked the contractor to do it twice, and he hasn't aligned it Crabtree Lane, I believe, and that hasn't been done yet. So I think those plans are gonna come next meeting, but I don't know if you can approve this plan unless you know where the roads are going for sure. So that's just a question.
The portion of I think the area you're talking about where Crabtree Lane is, it's out of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, so we're actually only approving the portion of the road that's in the jurisdictional area and the related drainage.
It definitely.
So it's not, if we were to ask them to change that, we would actually be acting outside of our legal
Right.
requirements, and so.
I noticed it was, so I just wanted to know if you knew that the road hasn't been done yet, but it doesn't affect you.
Yeah, no, that portion
Fine.
wouldn't affect
Good.
us.
Okay, thank you.
And if there ever, we can most definitely approve a plan before it goes to planning, before a planning board approves it, because it can also come back, as they have to come back for an amended order of conditions. But where this is out of the jurisdictional area, we can approve it, and then Chris, if he needs to, he'd submit us another plan if anything changed, and we could go through the amended order of conditions process.
I can speak to certain points of that. It is being reviewed, but the intent is to keep the plan where it is now. We will be looking at alternatives to the entranceway of this subdivision roadway, but the rear portion along this area is intended to remain as is. Granted, this is again beyond the purview of this commission. We do have certain criteria within the subdivision regulations and the existing power line easement that kind of restrict us on what we can do on the property. So with that being said, everything in this back portion of the property isn't going to change substantially. It is where it is. The stormwater system is designed in excess in order to accommodate this impervious area. If the road gets a little bit longer, it's not going to destroy the stormwater system. Obviously, we'll confirm that through the calculation process. But for the commission's ease, this back portion is intended to remain relatively the same.
You all set, sir?
Oh, I am.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience like to speak on this notice of intent? Second time, final time. Any other comments or questions?
I didn't get a chance to do the sidewalk, and I just want to say I don't think I've had enough time to review a subdivision in, half an hour discussion or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not ready to vote.
Yeah, no, we also haven't received DEP numbers yet.
Yeah.
So,
And so I'll send out another doodle because I think only 2 people responded to the last doodle that I had sent out for the sidewalk. And that was myself and Chris. Just right there.
just saying.
Just saying.
I would also rather we not approve anything until we have a conversation with Natural Heritage. Just given the controversy and the concern over it, I think it's better for us to have that conversation too.
I definitely agree with that. Vernal pools in that area, you want to play around with it if you want to confirm, like suggested.
Okay. Do you have notes of things to check in on and stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to
Sorry,
note
gave you a
that
lot.
Pete Lanza is more than happy to go out if you want and do a site visit and show you, because he's the one that certified it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Through my applicant, she does not wish to have any public or abutters on the property just for liability issues. She doesn't want somebody to twist their ankle and
Understand.
check suit. The commission obviously is more than welcome to walk the site. I would request that I be there just so I can get feedback from the commission while I'm out there and try to point to you where everything lives in the world out there. So I would.
It was definitely difficult to navigate the site. It was.
I think we got turned around a couple times. We have a path now, so.
Okay. So I'll leave the public hearing open. I'm assuming you want to continue it until we can get some of this
Yes.
squared away.
Hopefully by the next meeting, we can have some substantial answers.
Okay. Very good. Our next meeting is when?
May 28th.
May 28th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
next hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. There will be a public hearing for a request, an RDA for Leominster Dialysis Center LLC, Whitman and Bingham Associates LLC, regarding whether the work of improvements consisting of the installation of a new water service and sewer service into a sewer pump system. The installation of a generator, a new building access. The work is within the outer riparian zone area of the riverfront. Address is 20 Commercial Road, map 391, lot 8.
So, one sentence.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, knows a lot of like. Who wrote that?
Sorry about that.
Too informative for me.
Oh, we should just pass them down.
I need the exercise.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate the colored outlines.
Yeah, this is very helpful.
I'm a very color-oriented person, so
Well, I try.
it's much easier to see.
Well, for me too, I found myself getting confused easily. So if I'm having a tough time and I drew the plan, I figure I probably should make it a little clearer.
That's fair.
It's great.
My name is Anthony Cleves. I'm with Whitman and Bingham Associates. Here on actually behalf of Christopher Kidd Associates, who is the architects for the project, and then also the property owner, which is now 20 Commercial LLC. So as was read in, the project we have is, so this is the existing, used to be the old AAA building, that's why I always knew it as. Starbucks, another landmark of Leominster over here. Another landmark, especially for me as a kid, Denny's, right here. Shell gas station, and it's Motel 6 still located here. So what they're proposing to do is basically put in a dialysis center in this end of the building. This building is currently vacant. There's nothing in there. All the businesses have since left. And so they're putting a dialysis center there. Nature of that use needs new water and sewer connection. The building has water and sewer already, but the nature of the use needs bigger sources. So resource areas that bring us here tonight, we have the North National River kind of off to the top right of the plan, wetlands associated with that, riverfront associated with the river, and then the buffer zone. We're outside the buffer zone. We're just inside the 200-foot. All of the work really takes place in areas that have already been disturbed as part of the development. So I can take you through. We have the water line comes straight out of the building, in the pavement, purple, then comes off the pavement, comes along the grass shoulder, and then ties in to the existing service. Some of the handouts I gave you there, so it's this plan, the second sheet of this plan, which are the details, which I can get into if you'd like to. And the other sheets that I attached the Leominster GIS in the back, and also the architect's plan, which I have a blow up here as well. The GIS, sorry. Sorry, it didn't print out. If you wanted to look at some of the GIS for the area, we're basically in the parking lot area here. Sewer's going to come straight out of the building to a pump system. Where the existing sewer is just a little bit higher than we can get there by gravity, unfortunately. So we come to a pump chamber and along the grass shoulder, along the parking lot between Denny's and the building. Because of the nature of the use, it requires a generator. So that if there's any loss of power, any patients receiving treatment, we continue the treatment during that. And so we have a proposed generator pad, fenced-in enclosure, and then to retain the soil back, because we have a slope that goes off to the abutting property with a little wall there as well. As we, during the site walk, Amanda had mentioned about adding some additional erosion controls. We had a silt sack proposed for this catch basin where the storm water does get out to the National River. This area in here, actually the storm water doesn't really get to the river. If you're familiar with the dike that goes along the National River between the Searstown Mall, Whitney Field, all along the National River, it starts here. So this water doesn't even really get to the river. But as we discussed, probably a good idea to add some additional erosion control. So on this updated plan, which I updated yesterday, added a row of straw wattles to basically encompass this area too. And then also after the walk, I noticed there was some erosion that is occurring here. It looks like through the winter snow plowing operations, the berm got knocked out, so the water's not getting to the basin. We're outside the buffer zone and everything, but I added a note, repair bituminous berm and eroded slope. And so if you notice, the straw wattles go longer than the area we talked about. I wanted to include that little rec area too for that. If you want to see the blow up of the architect's plan, I have that here too. So again, this is the area, the end area of the building where the dialysis center would be going. Some new entry doors and whatnot. Water and sewer coming out of the building. That's the generator area. That's what we talked about, the water and sewer connections that exist. Something, quick summary for it.
The generator's gas, right? Natural gas?
No, diesel.
It's always diesel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was a discussion. The reason for that is with this type of use, it needs to be standalone, can't be relying on power, obviously, or any other utility company, because if this goes down, the people inside need to get power back. So it is diesel, and it has double containment, it has leak protection, which is all noted on the architect's.
And they fill it like they would just get a delivery like you get at your house?
Yeah, whenever you would need it,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, hopefully we couldn't need that often. They'll have to cycle the generator to make sure it's working, exercise with their alarms and
Okay.
leak detection and things like that, yeah.
And just like a comment, just so you guys know, so myself, Angela, and Liz were at the site walk, and all of the new utilities and everything is in asphalt area, and even where the generator's going is a extremely heavily previously disturbed area. So there's nothing that they're going to be touching that isn't already, has been very heavily disturbed anyway.
Bless you.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay. Do we have a recommendation, Lynn?
Yes, I recommend that we issue the negative determination number 2. The work described in the request is within an area subject to the protection under the Act, but will not remove, dredge, build, or alter that area. Therefore, said work does not require filing of a notice of intent.
Any other comments or questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we issue a negative determination. Number what? Do we have a number?
Number 2.
Number 2. Notice project.
Do I have a second on that?
Second that.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
you.
you.
For your input on the sidewalk, appreciate it.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if you may, can you please skip to enforcement G,
Maybe.
please? Oh, well. I figured you don't want to spend all night here.
Can we actually just take a 2-minute break? If you already said, all right. Thank you. 2 minutes. All right, we are back. All right, so we will move up enforcement G, so 909 Elm Street, work including a retaining wall in the riverfront area and possibly the buffer zone. So what is this about, Pam?
So Larry gave me a call, I forget exactly what day of the week, it was early in the morning, sent me a text message that he noticed something, wanted me to check it out on Elm Street, so I took a look over there. Did you guys see pictures? Yes, see the pictures. So that area is a fire access lane, and then there's a stream about 70 or 100 feet away. Chris will probably know a little better the exact distances. And that retaining wall is being built. Unfortunately, the homeowner, he was very open, invited me to the property, showed me everything, and he was listening to what I said. Right there on the site, we called the site plan manager. He was going to have to come out and do the work. He told me he called Hannigan Engineering, which obviously he did immediately. But basically, the retaining wall requires a building permit. I'm unsure if it's going to require a special permit for a watershed, but I did tell him that may be another issue, as well as if it's in the riverfront or the buffer zone, it's going to require a permit from us as well. And so he's been working with Hannigan Engineering to get something. I mean, I haven't issued an enforcement order because me issuing an enforcement order isn't going to get the work done any sooner, and it's not going to prevent anything. He already had erosion controls in place, and I wasn't
They weren't
exactly
really
sure.
working that well, though. The day that
That
I
was
out
another
there.
thing, that all this silt and stuff coming off the road. He had thought that it was from the truck sanding for the winter. He didn't realize it was coming off his site. So he did tell me he was gonna get someone right up there to, take care of that immediately. He's gonna keep better on it. He's gonna refresh the truck pad. But he does have the, I think it's hay bales and silt fencing right along the wall.
It looked like in the pictures.
Because he had a prior permit, I forget the DEP number. He had a prior permit where he put them exactly where they were last time.
Okay.
The other concern that I think there's a trail system through there. There's the fire access road. So the trail stewards had put a trail in, and it looks like a lot of that's been, I don't know if there's been trees removed or what kind of earthwork was done, but I believe it was all like wooded in the area. Now it's just gone.
Yeah, so that's, I did, I spoke to John Roseberry from DPW, and he informed me, he thinks that, it's most definitely a fire access road, he most definitely cannot be in the fire access road, but we can't really, I don't think we can really enforce the fire access road. That's gonna have to come from DPW and the city's legal way.
Yeah, but that is in the drinking water supply
Yes.
protection district, so I mean, it's a sensitive area, and, we start losing trees and things in those areas.
Right.
Don't know if he's cleared out any trees.
Yeah,
I think he was
that I
just
don't
digging up
know.
a lot of rocks, and he found a bunch of rocks on site that
I
he
mean,
was kind of
the
moving
digging
around.
was substantial, and I know
It was.
the area, there was a buffer between, in the original project, between the house and the work and, because there was a buffer left between the fire access road because and the trail system. There was something there,
Buffer,
yeah. And now there's nothing.
It's just, so
And the slope's gone, the soil's gone, the vegetation's gone, everything's gone.
and he understands that, now after I explained to him, kind of showed him, he was very understanding of the process, so. I did write up an enforcement order in case, sign what the commission wants to do, but, Chris is here if he has any comments.
Yep, so Mr. Leite, who's the landowner, he did contact us. We just finished our survey about the middle of last week, trying to figure out what happened out there. We do have some old information because we weren't part of the original permitting process, and I've taken a quick brief look at everything. It looks like there is some encroachment into the 200-foot riverfront area, and when our intent really is right now to, instead of doing a shotgun plan and trying to get everything reestablished and everything like that, let us take a look at it. We'll come up with remediation plans, take a harder look at what was originally approved, what has been done since and in between and everything like that. Rather than, again, like I said, give you a shotgun plan, let's create something that's actually justifiable for what the commission would like to see relative to the work that's been performed, if any remediation, drainage, anything like that. Take a look at that, a hard look, and also try to take into account what the intent of the landowner is. Granted, he wasn't aware of what he was doing was incorrect, but unfortunately it was. It was not done with ill intent by any means. We just want to try to get a plan together and file a notice of intent showing everything that we're trying to do to rectify any issues and everything like that. So So it's our intent to get that going relatively soon. Trying to aim for the first meeting in June. Yeah, June. Try to get that situated at the same time. So just wanted to reach out and say we're looking at it. It's not being pushed to the side, and that it's the landowner's intent to fix the issues as much as possible.
Yes.
And you've been on site once?
I have. And then there's two other comments. Where the stream is, where that sand was in the road, probably with all the rain's been washing out to the stream. It doesn't look like it's a significant amount. It looks like a light layer of it, but you'll probably take a look at that. They'll take a look at that with the NOI process, the remediation. And I also wanted to say, I don't think anyone's ever said sorry to me as many times as Manny did when I was on the site informing him. I just wanted the commission to know that. He feels really terrible. So he really just wants to make this right. I think you scared him the first time, Larry.
I didn't even say, I just drove by, so. I didn't
By
get a
real
chance to
slow,
stop.
Roll down the window real slow.
Sunglasses, probably.
I went with the other order of conditions.
Yeah.
Comments, go ahead.
Is the house in the jurisdictional area?
It is, and he did have an order of conditions for it, yes.
Because it looks relatively new.
It is, I think.
Yeah, the original
it was
order was in 13.
13, yeah.
And the house is located outside.
It was made of the slopes.
Right.
Yeah, so if we were to look at the original permitting, the permitting engineer and wetland scientists at the time kept everything outside of the resource areas, but again.
And is the current owner the same as the owner that built the home?
And I've only taken a cursory look at everything, but I think once we get into the notice of intent process, I can show you where the disconnect happened between the original permitting process and what's happened now, because I can't speak to it fully right at this point, but I think there is a substantial deviation from what the permit was originally and what their intent was versus what actually is out there now.
You good? Comments, I mean, I, from what I hear, me personally, I don't think we need to issue an enforcement at this point.
His work stopped completely, right?
Yeah, he's not doing any work there. I believe he moved a couple boulders out of the way, just because I informed him that the fire truck needed to get up there, so he did move a couple boulders out of the way. But he's fine with stopping work until he has his notice of intent, so.
Okay.
I didn't see a major rush to issue an
Yeah,
enforcement order.
at this point, I don't think there's a need for an enforcement order. You can just, obviously can coordinate with Angela if you can't make that June meeting.
Yeah,
You know, if you have to push it to the second one, or just keep her informed, that always
Manny,
helps.
the homeowner, he's been talking a lot to us, so he's anxious to get this going, so.
Yeah, I'd rather see the full scope, kind of like what you said, you know, history, and instead of just throwing something at us quicker than them, so. If there's no objections, I think that's what we'll do. If you can just coordinate, and we should be good.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
And if something changes, we'll be in touch. If some more erosion happens or something else.
We'll have a conversation with Manny at that point. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, let's get back to our review of third parties. So,
Okay. So I think one of the biggest differences is that the GZA ones are so high because they've literally included everything that they could possibly need to cover.
okay.
I have a lot of experience writing proposals like this, so in a sense I do understand it, but that is why, like, especially for Mary Ave, like, that's why it's so much more expensive, is because they've covered literally everything that they could need to cover. The other two are very specific about what they cover and what they do not cover. So the ones for Lucas Environmental is set at $1,600, and that includes the review of current NOI, a field visit out there to check the flags, do what they need to do, write up their own review summary, and submit it to us. In contrast, it does not include a meeting with the commission. So that's something we have to decide is, do we feel like we want them to, whoever we choose, do we want them to write up a summary and then come to a meeting and actually publicly like say what they
Right. Found or what they, yeah.
yes. The price honestly probably won't go up that much for someone to come to a meeting. Based on the cost, what we know about Mary Ave, how big the property is, really what we're looking for someone to do, my suggestion would probably be Lucas Environmental or Ecotech. Lucas Environmental, I know they have a very good reputation. The guy who owns it, Chris Lucas, he's a certified wetland scientist. I met him some time ago, but I know that they have a very good reputation. I would trust what comes out of that. We would just need a revised proposal if we wanted someone from his company to attend a meeting. That one is $1,600. Ecotech includes something very similar, reviewing what is already out there, going to a field visit, and submitting a written report. GZA's includes coming to, they've included what they expect travel expenses to be. They've included what they expect coming to a meeting to be. They've included costs for people at every level that they expect to work on this, and that's what has driven the cost up so much. So my personal opinion, just for Mary Ave, would be that that's probably a little bit more than we need to spend on someone to go out there, because they are at twice what either of the other companies are. So Lucas is at $1,600 right now, and Ecotech is at $1,250. I don't know if this is a one-person thing. I don't know. It's just a one-page thing. I mean, if anybody else wants to review it, feel free, but that's kind of, there's no real estimate of how long anyone expects it to take. Knowing what's out there, it should take less than an 8-hour day for someone to go out and actually do the field work, and then writing up their report and stuff. But
Comments?
I mean, if they're both gonna do the same thing, I mean, we're technically using taxpayer money, so, well, it's not tax
Actually,
money,
it's
but
not.
I mean, but it's the city's money. I mean,
Right.
there's only a finite amount of it, so, I mean, if we're comparing apples to apples and, you know, we don't really, I don't know that it's worth spending extra money. I mean, when you're looking at a bigger project, you know, maybe, you know, we're looking at, you know, the one, you know, the other project is much bigger. That's when you're gonna wanna spend the money and get it, you know. But on this one
right,
here,
yeah,
I don't.
and both of these are, both Ecotech and Lucas are written up and signed by certified wetland scientists, which is great. I think we would only be being charged for one person really to be out there, maybe two, whereas GZA is probably gonna have more than that.
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay with either of these options, just bearing in mind that if we will require anything else, or we want anything else, meaning we want them to come to a public hearing or something, we have to request that, and they either have to amend the proposal, or we request that now from whomever we choose, and they send us a revised proposal, but we would have to vote on that when we get that revised proposal. So those are the two options, is we can have them go through, we can review what they do, and then decide if we think it's worth it for someone to come to a meeting, and they could provide us with a proposal of just what it would cost to have them come to a meeting. But that's kind of up to it, what you guys think.
Does anybody know of Ecotech?
I personally don't know much about them.
When we chose them, that's kind of what I'm thinking, like,
Yeah.
we sent it out to 4 people,
I
you
sent
know.
it out to 8 people.
Well,
8 people.
Yeah.
Like, I tried really hard.
Okay, you had mentioned that you were waiting for one more, so.
Yeah,
Another thing is I've only spoken to Ecotech on the phone, GZA on the phone. I have no experience with Ecotech. I do know Brad did have experience with them, and Shirley said, good workers. I know I met Mr. Lucas. He's really involved with MACC. He goes to almost all the Conservation Commission things. He always has a table there. He's very involved with the Conservation Commission community. That's the reason I've just spoken to him at his table and taken a free sticker, so.
Any other comments? Just because the site, just because of experience, with you knowing Lucas or having some business, I know they're a little bit more money. Knowing the site and the potential that if something changes could heighten this to a much higher level, I'd rather deal with somebody that we have a little experience with, or at least some sort of
Yeah. Yeah, and
backing with you and anything.
he is very involved in MACC. I think he's even a sponsor of MACC, his company. So he's very well known.
Yeah, it's just I know he's a few $100s more, but knowing that
given the site,
because I mean basically if something changes, that could definitely take away half of that entire project, which now the contractor could come back and start disputing stuff. It could get a little bit more than just. Yeah. So that's my take on that. If you guys have any.
I definitely like go with the idea of going with someone that we're more familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either one. I know GZA. I don't know the other two. But if you guys have a little bit of background, what's the difference? Like $350 or something like that?
Yeah, $1,600 as opposed to $1,250. And granted, I mean, proposals are what they expect it to cost.
Right.
They will only invoice us for what it actually costs. So most people will maybe say, I assume it's going to take an 8-hour day, but maybe it only takes 4, right? So we will not be charged more than that unless something changes, and in that case, they'll send us a revised proposal.
It even says not to exceed, so protect our standing with the amount of money we can.
Can we negotiate if you come to the meeting and we're nice to you, can you do it for that price?
So what I guess the only question then is, do we want to vote on who's going to do it and decide if we want a public meeting with them after, or do we want to request from whomever we choose to send us a proposal that includes what they anticipate a cost for coming to a meeting to be?
I always like to talk to people, but we've also done this in the past where they just give us a report.
Right.
So.
Right. I personally think that's fine, and then once we have time to review it, if we have specific questions.
Right. Yeah, if it gets very heated or
we
it gets controversial,
then we can always pay that.
Wait for the situation to arise.
Whoever you pick, I can always give them a call tomorrow and say, we decided with your proposal. We also want to know what the additional cost would be for.
Right.
Should we want it? I think these as written are fine for what we're looking for.
Okay.
Is my opinion.
All right, I would agree with that. Does anybody have a problem with hiring Lucas Environmental? We should have a vote, correct? All right. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we hire Lucas Environmental at that proposed figure and not to exceed that figure.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second that motion.
All in favor? All right. Let's go to the bigger one.
All right. So this one is interesting because it's a much larger parcel, obviously.
Much larger.
But for Ecotech and Lucas, the price hasn't really jumped up too much. Ecotech only went up about $300, so they're at $1,600 for that whole parcel. Lucas is at $1,400 for that review, field visit, summary letter. And then GZA is sorry, they have a lot of paperwork. I thought I had it on the front here. Really? Oh, is that 4,500? Most scopes, everything is exactly the same aside from the pricing they expect. Again, GZA provides, if they have a senior scientist, a principal scientist, an associate scientist, a senior consultant, their technical staff, all of that, they give a breakdown of how much those people are per hour. Chances are only half these people will probably end up working on it, but they've provided that just to let us know that we could get up to that $4,500 mark. And they lay out everything from this could include, it includes the expenses and, that kind of stuff. I am not sure how big these two companies are, but this other property is a lot bigger. And there's especially given the DEP comments and things like that, I think paying a little bit more to go with a company that can provide a larger team, such as GZA, to go out there, may be beneficial to us. Again, it's hard because there's no breakdown of how long anybody expects it to take. These prices, however, they will not exceed charging us these prices. Angela, could you remind me, so for this property, what are the points of contention again that we're looking at?
Basically just to review it's for the annex, so it's basically just to review the delineation and where the wetlands are, because when we were out there's spots that look like wetlands, there's some vegetation in some spots, but we just couldn't get to it ourselves.
And I know the DEP had some concerns about a connection between two of the wetlands.
Yeah.
Right, that wasn't shown.
Exactly, and they were concerned with the vernal pool certification as well, so. I know when we were on site, Matt had mentioned something about there being snow storage being the cause of the vernal pool, not being a vernal pool, but tonight he said it was because it was emptying out, so I'm not really.
Yeah, they were actually pushing snow, like, almost into the wetland, so all that salt and everything is getting pushed, it's all melting right into that vernal pool on the right that isn't being used.
So it's a saltwater vernal pool, is what you said?
Yeah. That's true. So, that was a concern, that was pointed out at the sidewalk, so.
So if we're concerned about vernal pools, the one thing, at least specifically in the Lucas environmental proposal, it specifically says wildlife surveys, vernal pool surveys, etc., are not included in this price. GZA, I can't find, and it doesn't say it specifically. Actually, no. So in the Ecotech one, it says evaluate potential and certified vernal pools. We want to make sure that that language is in there before. Hydrologic connections. Okay, sorry, this just says, so it's not certification. This one says, Lucas Environmental assumes one site visit to inspect the two potential vernal pools on the site. This is not meant to be a comprehensive vernal pool assessment, but provide an evaluation of the pools to meet the criteria. But then in the back, it just specifically says they're not doing an actual vernal pool survey. GZA, there's no specific language, but both of these proposals are written up exactly the same, just with two different price tags. And I think it's just given the size of the property. This is all their general terms and conditions, so I guess that's kind of knowing what we know about the site, how you guys feel about who goes out there.
My only concern is that if we use Lucas for both sites, we may cross the monetary limit for having to actually submit like an RFP bid. So I don't know if we can use Lucas for a second one, as well as a Maestro bias, since we haven't accepted the law that allows us to have a peer reviewer.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's my only concern with that.
Okay. I mean, I have experience in my previous life with GZA. They're a good company and we're pretty thorough for when I've used them. So I can comment on. The size and scope of that project, I mean, you guys were out there for how many hours?
3.5.
And you only did half? You know? And if you're actually going to get into delineating wetlands and...
Yeah, and we had some areas like, there's a fire hydrant that's running constantly, so it created a whole new like wetland, and we really need a wetland scientist.
Yeah, so you know...
So, just a comment, because I just did notice this. So in their scope of services for us, it's, you know, review of what's out there, the field survey. They have included attendance at one meeting. They have not included a examination of those vernal pools. So the language reads, if the commission requires support to identify potential or certified vernal pool habitat, we will submit a change order for that service once that scope of work is clearly defined. So to me, that says that they're going to go out and check the wetland flags, but they won't do anything with the vernal pools unless we've specifically requested it. Maybe we did and they just didn't include it. It would be something, if we decide that they're the company we want to go with, before signing and everything, we would want to confirm with them what that language actually means. And if they mean like a full survey, or if we can ask them to just sort of look at it while they're out there.
And how about Ecotex?
And then Ecotex, this includes the review of the plans and what's already written up about it out there, the field visit, the evaluation of the potential and certified vernal pools, and then a written report describing what is seen out there. And they have specified that at a total proposal of not to exceed $1,600.
It's a huge difference, but having somebody, you know, for the size of the project, having somebody with more experience, you know, having senior scientists and knowing that,
Right.
you know, if we have a problem and we disagree with, you know, the applicant, and we, you know, need to have, you know, somebody, you know, represent us sort of and everything. I'd rather have somebody with senior scientists on staff that really have that expertise.
Angela, do you have any inkling as to how big Ecotech is, like when you looked them up or called them?
From my understanding, because I was looking for places, just a little backstory, that were not local to
Sure.
the representative's current job status. So they were suggested to me by DPW and the health director as well. Brad Stone helped me find a couple different companies as well, because he had worked with them a couple times. They're a pretty large company. They have the manpower to do it, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of my biggest
they must
question.
only have the
It's
manpower.
hard
They
to
have
tell
senior
sometimes.
scientists.
Sometimes a company is like 2 people, so.
Yeah, they must only have, I'm trying to think what job they've done recently. Can't remember. I think they were definitely on the same tier as GZA.
So, I mean, for all of these companies, for them to actually be able to provide us something written, like they have to have either a licensed wetland, like professional wetland scientist, a certified soil scientist, a certified wetland scientist. They can't just have anybody do it. So the concern about having, if something is contentious, having a senior scientist that can speak to that from a professional standpoint, from a legal standpoint. If it's a company that is pretty big, even if they're not, as long as it's a certified wetland scientist, they can help us out if there's any questions. So it's just a matter of, I guess, we feel like GZ is a good company. They are well well known in New England in general, and so if we're doing more than just reviewing a wetland line, they may have different people, I don't know. I don't want to be biased at all because I don't know anything about ecotech. So I can't really say that they don't have the people on staff to do it. I think, I don't know, this proposal is, I don't know, in my opinion, it's a little questionably high compared to the other ones for the same work. They are including a little bit more, so kind of keep that in mind, but that's my review. There's not a whole lot of difference in these proposals, aside from GZA's including a little bit more.
So I just pulled up Ecotech's website because I remember they had all of their credentials of their staff on the website. The president, he's a professional wetland scientist, licensed site professional, and also in the Society of Wetland Scientists. The vice president, Arthur Allen, certified soil scientist in the Soil Science Society, registered professional soil scientist, Society of Soil Scientists of Southern New England, certified erosion, sediment, and stormwater inspector, International Erosion Control Association, certified wetland scientist, and a Massachusetts approved soil evaluator. John Rockwood is a professional wetland scientist. Scott Morris, everyone there is a certified.
Yeah, so they have
everyone's extremely certified.
Credentials if we're worried about that.
Okay, so that doesn't seem to be an issue then.
There's a lot of certifications, a lot of S's there.
So you spoke to both Ecotech and GZA on the phone.
Yes.
Was there any significant difference in the service that they can provide, do you think? Or
I think they're probably pretty equal. The only thing about GZA is, like you said, they have a very extremely large staff. I think they have several offices. Ecotech has their only office is Worcester, but they do have a highly certified, I believe Arthur Allen, who's one of the most certified on the staff, would be taking this project on from my discussions with him.
yeah, he's the one who wrote up and signed the proposal.
And he was on vacation when he sent me that, so that says to his dedication.
Comments?
I guess I would say maybe Ecotech's probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm comfortable with knowing that they have. My concern was if there was any kind of debate, we wanted to make sure we had somebody.
Yeah, because it's a big project with a lot of potential issues.
Yeah.
Just from, wasn't even on the site visit, but just looking at it, I mean, my first question is how do they even get to the site? You know, I could just see potential problems if they decide to start developing this site.
What was the difference in price? Sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
So Ecotech is at $1,600, GZA is at $4,500.
Okay, so one thing I recently learned is that if we have a contract with someone we can add on additional services within that kind of scope of work without having to go through like the voting process again. We'd have to still vote amongst us and we would want something new, so we wouldn't have to write up a whole new scope of proposal. We'd have to basically send an email and say, hey, how much would this cost? They tell us the price and we say, okay, yes, we want it, no, we don't want it, and sign paperwork with them, but would kind of eliminate the whole.
Yeah, they would just send you an amendment.
Yeah, an amendment basically be very simple for us to do, compared to if GZA did reach their amount of money, and then we need more, we'd have to basically put a pause, hold on the project, which wouldn't be good for us, wouldn't be good for the applicant, wouldn't be good for everyone involved, and go through an RFP process, because it would exceed $5,000 limit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this, I mean, I would say that Ecotech is fine, because they're not including, because most of the time, like, if you include a commission meeting, you're including at least 3 hours, right? Because you're including travel and you're including being there for at least an hour. And depending on if they have a high-level scientist come to that meeting, it's a good chunk of that money. So for Ecotech, I think this would be good because they wouldn't exceed that $1,600. But if we said, okay, this is good, if they got out to the site and something was different, that it's going to take longer, etc., they would call Angela and they could provide an amendment for the additional funds they think they're going to need.
Okay. Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that for the Orchard Hill Park Drive property, we hire Ecotech to do the evaluation with the initial proposal not to exceed the $1,600 threshold listed in their proposal.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? All right, perfect. Angela, I'm assuming you'll obviously take care of all of that. Certificates of compliance, 567 Pierce, have you seen or done anything with that site?
I did go out there for a site visit. I can see everything from my car. It was pouring rain, so I didn't get out of the car too that week. But I did take a look at it. I did email Brian from Forma Foundations because a lot of the grass is coming extremely sparsely, and you can see a lot of the silt and dirt and soil there, so it's not really growing right now. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the 26 days of straight rain we've had.
The weather hasn't helped. My grass is pretty spotty.
Yeah, so I did send them an email. Nothing's getting, they put jute matting down, and it looks fairly new, so they must have even been maintaining it. I haven't heard a response to them. I did email last night. They've been out there yet. They had any plans for the spring. So, I'm on it.
Very good. How about 42 Sheldon Hill?
I did do some work on it. I spoke to actually Chris Anderson about it because they had wanted an occupancy permit from the building department, and they wanted to hold it up until they kind of give us their plan for stabilizing the area. Unfortunately, once again, because of this lovely weather, it's been very difficult for them to stabilize the area. So we're still kind of working on that one.
Okay. 12 Drummer Road, under DEP 199221. Explain this.
So this is kind of an interesting issue that I've been coming up with. So everyone here is familiar with the Leggett Hill subdivision area. This DEP number, 199221, covered portion of the Indian Ridge area. Not Indian Ridge, but the portion of that road before Indian Ridge was put in. So this DEP number was issued back, I want to say the 88 was the year. And since then, Leggett Hill has obviously expanded, and other streets were put in, not under any orders conditions, but they're on the same parcel that this order conditions is on. So I've had 3 different homes go up for sale call me 3 weeks before closing that, if this order conditions showed up, they need to close it out immediately, they can't sell their house, they're having a lot of trouble. 2 of them, I was able to kind of explain, show them maps, show them letters, show them the file, basically, that this house had nothing to do with the order conditions. It was the same lot, but it wasn't actually the specific house. And there's no way the commission could issue a certificate of compliance for a property that wasn't originally included on the plans and isn't in any jurisdictional area at that time. 2 of them, they accepted my email and phone conversation with, I spoke to the lawyer and the realtor and the homeowners and the soon-to-be homeowners, I guess would be the correct answer. I heard from this one, and they're closing in a couple weeks. They need a COC, but unfortunately, this is another one of the houses that isn't included on it. It's showing up on the deed when they do, a deed title search. And sometimes it doesn't show up in title searches, other times it does. So I'm not sure what the commission can do. I wanted to put on public record that there's not much we can do, just because I think he's getting a little pushback from the people who are trying to buy the home. I did put in a legal request as well. I haven't heard back on that yet.
I mean, hearing that, I'm not inclined to do anything at this point.
Yeah, I think we have. What I think we have to do, is kind of, like I just said, state that we can't issue a certificate of compliance and deny it.
Right.
So then I can go back to him and refer to the meeting that's going to be recorded and posted online and be part of public record for him to kind of assist this man who's very nice and trying his best to get everything done the right way.
Right.
And it's really a huge speed bump for people in that area.
Right.
And an already very stressful time.
Other people's thoughts or comments?
And I've been doing research on the Leggett Hill subdivision to see how we can close out those orders from 88. work's obviously done.
Right.
I have a couple friends that live up there. It's not in construction anymore, but I think just back, just kind of slipped through the cracks when they started selling off the lots. No one really wanted to file it for a COC. But I don't know what the commission can do if we can require all the homeowners to pitch together to provide as-built, or if we could collect as-built from each house separately.
Which they probably don't have.
Yeah, nobody's gonna wanna do that.
But I wonder if the building department might have them. That's what I need to do. I'm doing more research on it to see what we can do to prevent this.
Yeah.
It's most definitely a huge burden. Maybe we can take a vote on not approving the COC.
I'm not inclined to issue a COC without any more information at this point.
Yeah, I don't have any, we have no information on.
Right, especially that area.
Yeah.
So. Okay, do I have a motion?
You want to vote?
Do I have a vote?
I can't vote. Just so everyone's clear, I can't vote or make a motion. Yeah, so I can make a recommendation that the commission votes to deny the COC as this lot and address is not actually on the original order of conditions, DEP file number 199221.
All right. Do I have a motion?
That is the case, right?
Yes, it's absolutely.
Okay. All right, I'll, so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? All right. If you could get us more information, do some more research on that, it'd be beneficial to us. Thank you. Extension permits,
None at this time.
any new communications?
Yes, I did receive a letter that a property sent us. It is coming out of Article 60. Dear Conservation Commission, please be advised that I represent Minnesota Country Club, hereafter the club. Please consider this letter from the club's formal notice of intent to convert pursuant GLC 61B Chapter 9. No, 61B 9. The club is currently negotiating with Verizon to locate a cell tower on its property. The club seeks to convert a 50 by 50, 2,500 square feet area of land in the northwest corner of parcel 3931. The proposed use of the 2,500 square feet land would be to lease it to Verizon to allow them to install and maintain a cell tower. The name of the landowner is Moosonok Country Club, incorporated with an address of 40 Moosonok Drive, Leominster, Mass. 01453. My name, address, and telephone number, all of my information is down below. And then this is mainly for assessing purposes, but the commission wanted to contact the assessing office with their concerns or recommendation. That's the only reason it's brought to our attention.
Is it near a resource area?
Not other than the irrigation issue that they're having over there.
Yeah,
Not
but I mean, not the cell tower.
No.
There's nothing we can do anyway.
Yeah, there's, just, because it's Article 61B, they send everyone, and City Hall these if the commission wanted to contact the assessing department. I'd love to help you.
Any comments? Okay.
Good.
Any other communications, ma'am? Okay. Meeting minutes.
Are we ready, guys?
I'm ready.
All right, so,
Was I even alive when we had these meetings?
hold on one second. I have to count.
You weren't even on the commission.
All right, so for the first one, do you mind if I take over?
No.
Okay. For meeting minutes for November 13th, 2018, this is strictly just for housekeeping. Does anyone have any addition to it out of Liz, Larry, Dan, and Paul are the only ones who can actually make a motion on this. Everyone else can vote on it if you watched and read it. So does anyone have any issues with it? Anything I missed?
No, unless I sent you an email.
You did not send me.
Explaining that it was 6 months ago. I can't remember if they had an issue or not.
I think they're correct. So only out of the four that I named, you are the only ones that can make a motion to
Mr.
approve.
Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of November 13th, 2018 as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Perfect. Take that one off the agenda.
I shall. For the next one, for December 12th, 2018, the only person absent was Dan. Unfortunately, you guys weren't in the commission yet, so the only people who can make a motion would be Liz, Larry, and Paul. Everyone else can vote if they read and watched the minutes. I'm not gonna say this every time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 12th, 2018 as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed and abstained?
For the next one would be February 26th, 2019. Mr. Colombo is absent. So once again, Liz, Larry, Dan are the only people who can make a motion.
Do I
Anyone have
vote?
any problems? Sorry.
No. No. Larry, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for February 26, 2019 as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed and abstained? All right.
Next one's for March 12th, 2019. You two were both on the commission then, correct? Yep.
You were right.
Yep.
Okay.
I believe you were absent because you had a work function.
Yes, yes,
So-
I was not here.
Yes. But everyone who can vote
Memory's
on
better
it.
than mine. So I was like, wait. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so Liz, Paul, and Amanda were absent, so the people who can make a motion would be Larry, Sam, and Gail. And Bradley's not here.
Do I have a motion for the March 12th, 2019 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I propose a motion to accept the meeting minutes from March 12th, 2019 as presented.
Do I have a second?
No second.
All in favor? Opposed and abstained?
You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Can I make a motion to remove those from the agenda?
I'm gonna do it first thing tomorrow. I just want to say thank you everyone for doing that. I know it was tedious
Are we-
for some of our new members to go through all that. I really appreciate it.
Are we caught
Never
up on?
like this.
Yeah, this is the first time in the 8 years. I've
It's
been
been a rough
We got it.
winter for us.
We're
now.
good.
It's all Paul's fault.
It is Paul's fault.
It's a tough winter.
Do we have any minutes to get caught up on other than the last?
No, I think 326 was canceled.
That's right, 326 was canceled.
So yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome.
New business.
Very June,
This
50
was-
miles to get
I
here.
meant to
So I turned around and went back.
Okay.
take this off, but I got distracted with listing out the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because we
Right,
talked
because I was
about
like, I
that.
thought we already did that.
Yeah, it's been well received. I've only had a couple people have a problem with the new deadline.
Cool.
Not a big deal.
Perfect. Old business, any updates at all on Main Select Brook?
Not at this time.
You haven't found the money yet?
I've been, I had I've been digging for treasure.
Look under the seat cushions in your house or in your car or something.
My kids already do that.
Guidance documents,
Those are the documents, it's the tips,
those it says
Yeah.
posted on what?
on the Google Doc.
Right,
Yeah.
but is there posted?
I haven't posted them on the city website yet or in my office, just because I wanted to make sure that anyone had any additional information they wanted me to add, I could add it, without having to print out 75 copies again.
Any comments or? Okay. Thank you. I'd like to add one thing to old business if I can.
Okay.
The gardener spot.
Oh, yes.
Is that, I don't see it on here, do I?
I took off the agenda because Mr. Morrow hasn't really responded on it. He gave us the draft to read. I'm kind of just waiting for the final from him because
Okay.
hasn't come to any of the meetings.
Right.
So I just took it off. I can put it back on and call him again.
I just, yeah, I mean, I kind of reviewed it again. I don't know how much I can discuss, but I'm gonna anyways. It kind of doesn't address our issues. So I'd like to have a little bit more formal discussion with him and or the person that wrote it. Has everybody on the commission read it or at least reviewed it?
I looked at the section, the part where they said the brook had, I think it was a full eye or whatever,
Okay.
and it was a concern, so that, which even further the concern of putting pesticides and fertilizers and all that,
Correct.
discharging directly into a brook that's already potentially contaminated with, I forget what it was a health concern.
Yes.
So by adding nutrients to it, you're only
Taking it
compounding
worse.
the problem. So,
I know you were pretty involved in this. Do you have a copy of that report?
I do have a copy of it, but I have not read it because of my illness, but
Okay.
I'll catch up, I'll read it.
Do you think you could do it by the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With
I
my
just-
yellow marker.
What's that?
With my yellow marker.
I just want to make sure that, because I just wasn't completely, to talk more about future stuff and not
yeah.
what's
Yeah.
the issue is today, which is really our biggest concern, and not, I don't care what he's going to do with his fields 10 years from now. I do, but, so I just want to have a more formal discussion. So. All right, enforcement, 723 Willard Street. I had a discussion with the mayor on this. Angela also spoke with the mayor. The homeowner hasn't removed all the encroachments,
He has actually now.
so everything has been, is that a picture?
Yep, it's actually sent me today. He finished removing it and he's mulched the area.
Okay. The issue did come up, that our discussions with him was to remove all the encroachments and to restore the area back to
It's original.
its original. He proposed that the original be something different.
Christmas tree farm?
A little bit, I guess. I haven't seen the pictures. Angela, I guess, spoke with him and said, hey, this is what the commission said is back to original. The homeowner contacted the mayor, and the mayor in turn contacted myself and some other things. And the mayor decided that he would take it upon himself to approve this.
Looks like a Christmas tree farm.
I had a discussion with him, told him what we told the homeowner, and I'll just leave it at that. So,
But we can still ask for it to be restored to its natural.
we
Can
can, we
It's
can.
conservation land.
We can.
I think he did plant trees. There are trees around the area. It's all kind of, I don't know if they're scrubby trees. It's, old trees that, and good mix of it. He's planted, I believe, some spruce trees in the area and add some mulch because to
Yes.
stabilize the area as well. He did remove the entire shed, the entire basketball court.
That's mulch and some trees. That's not natural. There's no, mulch isn't a natural. That looks like a landscaped area like my yard doesn't even look that nice. That's not, yeah. That's like landscape. We want like some of the native trees in the area.
I understand, but I think at this point, he's spent quite a bit of money removing everything very quickly for us. And Dean said he's really fine with what he's done. He feels he's done a great job and worked with the commission very well on what he's done. You remove the fencing around the area.
Is he just gonna let it go eventually, or?
Yeah, that's the intention is to,
But the mulch is going to stop things from growing. That's the point of mulch.
but it will naturally degrade.
Yeah, over time, but
There was no top, I don't believe there was a lot of topsoil left, so that was kind of his idea, was to use the mulch that he had.
It was also brought to my attention that this is what he was going to do. If not, it was going to remain unrestored until next year. Or at least till the end of this year construction season.
But it's not restored to there's nothing natural with it. That looks like something I would hire a landscape person to make my property look like, it's beautiful. He did a nice job, but it's just not natural. That's something that you do when you want want, when you want your home to look pretty, not when you want something to look like woods.
I understand that. I think, just, where his conversation with the team went, it was that, he made the area look better, and he did what the commission asked, essentially.
Well, at least if we pull the mulch out, you might get some stuff to grow back. I mean, you don't want just a couple of sparse trees. You want things to start to come back naturally. If you put in material that blocks vegetation from growing, it defeats the purpose.
I can talk to Dean about that. I do know that he did tell him that he was all set with this, so.
Yeah,
I don't want to go against.
No, even if we don't do any more plantings, but the mulch is going to stop what would naturally start growing.
I'll talk to Dean about that and see how he feels about that.
Did you say the topsoil was gone, and that's why he put?
It was because before it was a basketball court and a very large shed that he had to move. And you can kind of think there's some truck.
So that's probably part of it. It's for stabilization.
Yeah,
Because if he had just put topsoil down,
especially with all the rain we've been having.
It wasn't going to do
You don't
anything
want washing
anyway.
out.
Yeah, but it's not going. I mean, there's no resource area there. I mean, it's not going. There's nowhere really for it to go. It's already compacted. You can see that it's firmly compacted area. It's not like highly disturbed like loose soil. It's not going. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
How thick is the mulch? Do we know?
I haven't gone to the site to see. All I've gotten is this picture.
I would, as a commission, just talk to Dean and just let him know the commission's concerns of mulch. And let him know we'd like to see growth, more natural growth around the trees.
I will let him know.
And that doesn't cost anything. That's taking a rake and pulling the mulch out.
Sorry. Didn't mean to send it that way.
So do we know everything except for those new pine trees or spruce trees has been removed from the conservation lands?
Yeah, so you can see the shadow. There's a very large spruce tree over here. You can see the shadow of.
So
that was the property line.
that mulch line is that grass is in conservation land then?
No. I didn't know he was thinking about he's gonna possibly put his fence up back on his property line.
Yeah.
But he liked having, nature behind him, so
Yeah.
he wanted to have the open view. And I told him that I don't think the commission really has the right to mandate he puts his fence up right on the line.
No, I don't care if there's a fence or not.
But if any of that grass is, if that land is if any of the conservation land is grass, I mean, I always
I think
see.
before it was more of just the open field, like there wasn't much growth there. If you look at the GIS images, there wasn't a ton of trees in that spot anyways.
No,
It was
so it
just
was
kind of
just
like
a
a
small-
field area.
Right, but we don't want it lawn. I mean,
Right,
No, and I
as much as we don't want it a building, we don't want it lawn. We want it to be
We did have the
natural.
lines staked out. I think Hannigan Journey did do the survey lines.
Yeah, but we just don't know what, we always see is a single picture, so we don't know how that relates to.
So the survey lines are drawn.
Yeah.
And how do we know that all of the infrastructure is removed without
Because
going up to?
all the infrastructure, the pictures that were in the enforcement order actually weren't from his property. They were, it was a mistake. It was actually from a property in Sterling. His property, I did visit the site once with him to kind of discuss what he could and couldn't do. And there was half a basketball court and a shed that went right here. So that was the main area, and he's very clearly taking it all out. Dean has gone to the site and confirmed that everything's been taken out.
The electrical infrastructure is taken out
Yes.
with a permit?
I do not know if we got an electrical permit on that one. I don't know if you need an electrical permit.
He probably
to
didn't
pull
have an
out.
electrical permit to
I
put
do know he did get
in,
a building permit, and he did get his permits to
Well, I'm
move the
looking at
shed.
this appears to be a pipe sticking out of the ground right there.
But there's no resource area, it's just conservation land, is
It's
that
conservation
what
and
we're
loan by
concerned
the
about?
That's why I asked
So,
the question.
yeah,
it's not really
That
our
looks like a
concern whether or
conduit
not you got
sticking
an
out of the
electrical
ground.
permit.
Yeah, I can ask him
Maybe
about
it's
that,
not.
just to
No.
make sure, because I know he did get
It's-
permits from the building
Just-
department to
It's
move
gonna be
everything
did, but
and
it's not
have
really
them-
anything.
We could always do a sidewalk, because you can access it from the other side, from
I think Dean did the site walk and he did approve what was done, so.
But then anybody can walk there, it's
You know, he said he did
Right.
all the work, so I think that's what he said.
It's just we want to make sure,
The chairman
as a
with
board,
the,
that the area that
Looks
is
like a conduit sticking right out of the
open
ground.
space is not lawn, and that it's,
So we can go on our property
Yeah.
anytime we want to
Yeah.
check that out, we
Yeah.
just can't go on.
That might just be a
Yeah.
stake too.
And it's still staked, or
I don't know.
is the other
Yes, last
stakes
time I went out
down?
there, it was still staked, which was a couple weeks ago, and I believe Dean said, it's right to the property line, that he's done everything he needs to do.
Yeah,
But I can email Mr. Dan Dean and make sure it's
yeah,
still
that's,
staked.
I mean, that's my
And just
concern.
we just wanna walk it from our side of the property, don't wanna go onto his property.
Yeah, no, we don't need to. We just want to make sure that it's actually not lawn and
Right.
everything. We
No, I
want to make sure that
understand.
everything's. Like, if we saw stakes in that picture and we knew that
Yeah.
that was the case, that'd be one thing, but,
Yeah, I just think it's kinda hard to get the whole area, in
Right.
sure.
yeah.
When we go, I like ribeye steaks, by the way.
It's important.
Any more discussion? No?
Not right now.
Okay. 134 Crawford Street.
So we kind of already briefly spoke about this with the agent from Lunenburg, Matt Morrow. I did speak with Hannigan Engineering. They requested all my correspondence on it, which was a fairly big packet. I did explain to them that we were not issuing an enforcement order for such a small area that really isn't impacting the area since they're going to be filing NOI anyways. So, and I just thought I left it on because I wanted to make sure the commission was fine with me taking this off under enforcement since we're not actually issuing an enforcement order and they're going to be coming before us.
I have no problem with that because it's pretty small.
That was just kind of my little update.
That's the under 5 square feet.
Yeah,
Some ridiculous amount like that. Okay. Any objections? Okay. 8 Nutting Drive.
So I met with Ross last Friday, and we kind of discussed a couple different things he could do because he is really struggling with that erosion off that hillside. And so we discussed different plantings we could do, different trees he could do. He did mention, he's like, I do really want to put a shed there, and I explained to him that shed is exempt. That's fine as long as you're not putting a concrete foundation in for the shed, it's an exempt activity. But his mind was he wanted to do everything right. His wife, she's an environmental engineer. He works in contracting in a way, so he wanted to make sure that he did everything right. So that was one plan. He's gonna plant some wildflowers to stabilize the area that he removed the bittersweet in, and he's gonna have some trees from the Green Gateway City, since they do have quite a few different trees that thrive in wetland and riverfront areas this year. If anyone knows anyone interested, it's most definitely a good place to send them. If you guys have anyone contact you outside. And then we talked about the erosion on the wall. It's going to be really difficult to get anything to grow there because it's pretty degraded just from all the trash falling down from the other properties. So he did have a plan we did discuss a possibility of putting in a retaining wall, a trellis retaining wall, and it'll be 3.5 feet, and then it'll be like another half foot to kind of support that slope that's kind of falling in. It would be a retaining wall. It'd only be in, what is the plan? The very outer riparian zone. So it wouldn't really be in the major areas. It would be in the wetland area, and it would essentially protect the wetland area as it's going to be stopping that slope from eroding down further. He is going to file. I recommended filing an RDA for that kind of project, just because of the nature of it. It's going to be better. It's going to be restoring that slope basically with topsoil vegetation, and just where it is. I didn't think it required anything more extreme. And with the permitting process, we did speak with the building commissioner. It would not require a building permit.
Comments, questions? Okay. Just keep us posted on that.
And he did say thank you
Okay.
for us issuing.
Okay. 35 Day Street, erosion issue, site is not stable, wetland replication area has possibly failed. You have no update.
Yes, I did email them requesting an update, asking if they've gotten around to anything. As we have discussed, they are having some personal issues. So I did not receive a response yet. I'm planning on contacting them again on Friday. I don't want to
Okay.
cross any lines.
I mean, I did drive by the site a couple times. You know, obviously just looking from the road, it's very hard to see, but.
And that was, I'm sorry, that was another thing. They don't want anyone going onto the site without giving them a phone call first.
Correct. So I was on the public way.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because we have some new members here. Some people like to have notice first.
I question the wetland replication area. Kind of a lot of the stuff we did talk about, just from the plan, I kind of saw what I could see from the street. I would agree with some of that, so.
I don't know if we want to set kind of like a internal deadline for ourselves that if they don't respond by this, date, we'll issue an official enforcement order, 'cause we haven't actually taken that step yet. I don't know, how do you guys, because it has been, so we missed one meeting, so it's been a couple weeks.
Okay.
I just don't want them to miss this growing season.
Right. Have you been on the site recently?
Not recently, I haven't had a response back from them,
So
and
you-
I can't schedule site visit without them approving it.
Right.
By the next meeting, if we don't have anything, just issue the order and get this something going.
Yeah.
Get it to DEP if they're not gonna cooperate. I mean, I understand they might have things going on, but
Yeah,
I
so I
mean,
think.
haven't followed what they had promised to do on the property here, so.
And, that
Can't
was
just
pretty
leave it.
sensitive, because, they filled in wetlands and tried to replicate. From what we saw from the pictures and stuff, it looked pretty sketchy.
Yeah, like lesson learned, do the replication first before the
Right, so,
the rest of the stuff.
yeah, I would say, if we want to do that, give them, it gives them another 2 weeks, and then, hear nothing, and at that point, we can issue an official enforcement. What, how, and when, and. Okay, I agree with that. 110 Old Tavern Road. What was that one?
I met you at the property. The woman with the driveway extension is actually a criminal.
Yes. That was the one sunny day.
I know.
I
We were jumping in the
You should have came, Paul. It was a nice, beautiful sunny day. So me and Angela did a quick site visit there. That's the one where they basically put in some reclaimed asphalt on their front yard, where there was some grass, and they put in some riprap at the top of a slope leading down to a resource area, I guess, for lack of a better term. So it's very stable. It's all gravel now, so they didn't increase any impervious area. It's reclaimed asphalt, so it's definitely impervious. The riprap definitely will hold it there. They actually have kind of a berm made from the riprap, along with down probably 3 feet of slope around that area. There was a couple of trees they wanted to take down for some safety issues.
They're gonna come to us before they do
They
that.
wanna do that,
They're
right.
gonna come to us, so she was like, that's not in any rush to them.
So, obviously when I was there, they were basically 3 large pine trees that served no purpose to the wetland, and one of them was literally next to their driveway. So, I said we probably wouldn't have, that'd be a commission decision, but, taking down 2 or 3 pine trees on an upland area next to a wetland probably wouldn't be the worst thing if they wanted to do that. So, from what I saw, I didn't see any issues. Obviously, I told her if there's any more work or anything else that happens on the site, they definitely should come to us and talk. And what they did, as Angela said a couple meetings ago, they realized they were supposed to come to us, but
They misunderstood.
they misunderstood, and I didn't see anything that was of great concern other than they took out lawn and put in this reclaimed asphalt is what they did. So.
My only recommendation is to, and I've spoken with Jen a couple times on this and explained my thoughts on it, is to have them do an RDA for this, because it is technically in the buffer zone. And I think just to have that as part of the file, just mainly to protect the homeowner in the long run, because if they try to sell their home and then new agents in, new commissions in, says, this was never permitted, this will be in the file to protect them. And she's completely open to doing it, but she just wanted to know the commission's thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it makes Makes
That's
sense. It's
fine.
like a retroactive RDA.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. So. You have some pictures of that the first time you went, correct?
Yes.
For the file and whatnot? Okay.
Yeah, and I've already added my own notes there, but I think just because you never know what's gonna happen in 5-10 years.
Right, no, that's fine. Okay. 375 Harvard Street. Site visit conducted on 5/8.
Yes.
What are they doing over there?
You want without me?
Don't disturb you.
Isn't that your project first?
I should have brought you because they wouldn't see me. So I went on the site, I took a look around, I went in to go speak to the GDC Construction, who is the contractor for this project. Unfortunately, they were a little bit too busy doing other things, so they weren't able to talk to me, but I did speak to their admin, and she was very confused because she thought that it was only the person who owns the land, since they're like, we're just renters, we don't have anything to do with that. And I had to explain to her that since they were the contractors, they actually are legally required now, because they are the contractors, they did the sewer line, they are responsible for everything else, even if they are just the tenants currently. And she said that I would be getting a phone call back within a couple days from them. I haven't received it. I set a deadline on my calendar on Wednesday to send out a letter to Carl and them with a possible enforcement.
I guess a couple questions. What's the date on the enforcement? Meaning, we gave them a year, correct?
So for their order of conditions, the date was July 2019. I took that kind of mean end of July 2019,
Okay.
just give them a little more cushion, so I did remind her of that.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of waiting for them to call me back.
Okay.
Snow signs were gone, which I told them was a major disappointment, because that was something that was very important to us. They did put the sewer line in already. The area where the leach field is, where that wetland is growing very strong. It's very green over there, obviously, because the field's septic. The only thing left they really have to do is the storm system,
Okay.
and the signs.
Well, the enforcement has to go to the property owner.
Yes, but you can also send enforcement to the contractor and the property owner. So kind of let them know that they need to do this. They can't just shrug it off on the property owner who can go to Florida and shrug me off for 6 months. It's gonna get done.
Okay.
And the sewer line's connected?
It is. Which I think we discussed that in the meeting, mainly because of health issues, they finally had a break in the weather, and the Board of Health was really adamant that it really should be done sooner rather than later. That we kind of made the decision that was okay for them to kind of put in, as long as they were going to continue everything else. So
Right.
I will most definitely be reminding them of our agreement.
Okay. So it's July
July
2019.
2019.
What kind of condition are the erosion controls in?
There really wasn't a need for them in that area, because where the sewer line went in was all asphalt, and it's all been replaced. They didn't actually do any of the work in the resource
Right.
area.
But the ones that are outside of that?
They're still there, yeah.
Are they still in?
They're still in
Bad shape.
place, yeah. No, they're not bad. They replaced them. They'll probably
they
need to be
did.
fixed again, most likely just re-stapled, because silt fencing's.
Yep.
But they're in pretty good condition after winter. It's a mild winter.
Okay.
All right. Emergency certs. 40 Roach Ave.
Oh yeah, sorry. So this has been a problem that has been brought to my attention multiple times by the Fitchburg DPW and the Fitchburg Conservation Agent. There's some beaver dams on this property that build up, and then they flood Fitchburg residences. There's some history to this with Peter Angelini, Bavenzi, mosquito control, Fitchburg DPW. I'm not going to get into it all, but basically there's been sort of something going on there, so they weren't really able to remediate it. Myself and Christopher Knuth worked with Mr. Bavenzi on kind of setting a plan to have the beavers trapped and then remove the dam. He finally had an opportunity where the beavers finally were all trapped. And so I issued an emergency certification for this because it was flooding people's homes. It's a health and safety issue. And he had the dam removed by, I forget the gentleman's name, Hunter. He's out of Harvard. He specializes in beaver dam removal. And what they did was they removed all the dam materials after the beavers were removed. And they mulched them and put them far away so they wouldn't go into the resource area. Nothing was left on the site. and it's already been completed. The only thing that Mr. Vivenzi did inform me from his representative's work was that there's a culvert on Route 2 that is very blocked, and he would have no problem giving the Fitchburg DPW access to free that, as long as he got the proper permits, because he did believe it would need machinery.
I know Mr. Giannakis was on the commission at the time. We did look at that. We had the DPW director and the conservation agent from Fitchburg here 5 or 6 years ago, Larry.
Yeah.
We did a site walk out there to help alleviate that problem. Obviously, the work kind of never got done, obviously. But there is an issue that it actually floods underneath Route 2, because there's a culvert, and it floods the neighborhood that abuts Route 2 right there behind like Five Guys and that area over there. So I'm well aware of it. I know Larry is well aware of it. We went out and walked all around that area, and I always kind of wondered what they were going to do, because we had 2 or 3 meetings, a site visit and whatnot, and I remember that culvert was a big issue and a discussion. So.
If they don't put up like a beaver deceiver or something like that, it's just gonna keep happening.
Well, that's something Mr. Vivenzi was willing to work with me, but right now it's kind of just get rid of the standing water, especially since we've been doing so much work for the commission as well, and I had so many communications with him on it.
Yeah.
We finally were able to.
It's just gonna keep happening, so.
Yeah. So I do have that emergency certification if you guys want to vote on ratifying it.
Okay.
Even though the work has been completed, just for housekeeping purposes.
I have a motion.
I make a motion to ratify the emergency certification for 40 Roach Ave.
Do I have a second? All in favor? 548 West Street.
Yes, so this is something I did receive notification from someone in that area that a private bridge had collapsed into the brook behind there. So upon inspection for the road, I did confirm that a bridge that one property is here, and there's like another piece of property over here, and there's like a pool and a nice deck area, and there's a bridge that connects them both, had collapsed into the brook. I was concerned that if we did get a heavy rain, that it would cause backing up or flooding or damage to other people's private bridges in that area. So I contacted the homeowner. I sent him a letter. He responded almost immediately. I met him on site and we talked about his plans. And I told him, I wanted to issue an emergency certification to remove the bridge, because he was doing it himself piece by piece once the water had slowed down. Mainly because I wanted it documented that he was doing everything right, and he had no idea. So I worked with him. I explained to him the process for putting in a new bridge, because half his property is over there. And this home was built back in this, early 60s, so kind of before the riverfront a lot of the protection aspects, so it is exempt, I believe, under all those, as it was an existing structure. So he would like to put another bridge in, obviously, and we had a discussion on how he would do that. And I actually contacted DEP, because the way the current bridge is standing is that there are stilts that are in the ground surrounded by concrete, and those are still good. The reason he believes the bridge failed was because a tree had come down the river and there was a middle stilt that had gotten knocked out. So his plan was to, when he rebuilt it, would be to not put a middle stilt in. Unfortunately, Leominster doesn't have a building. It's not required for the building permit to make a private bridge. But my concern was that if he's not actually going to be in the resource area when he builds this bridge, can the commission really require him to file for it? He has no problem filing for it.
It's a resource area. It's a brook.
It's above, though. He's not working in it. He's not going to have to do any work because there's already stilts in place, and they're firm. The ones that are there, they're concrete cemented in the banking.
But it's within 100 feet.
But it's above. He's not going to be doing any work actually physically in the brook. He's going to be literally laying big pieces of wood down and more wood and working his way across. And so DEP...
Is that what the regulations say?
Well, when I spoke to DEP, this would really be up to the commission, but they kind of agree that it's going to be difficult for us to... Not difficult, we can try, but there's no resource area is going to be altered from this bridge being put in. If he did put the middle stilts in, it would be altered. But even he's avoiding doing that this time, and it's just gonna be a private bridge, it's not gonna be a roadway, it's gonna be a walking bridge over to where his pool is.
And the 100 feet extends horizontally. It doesn't
It
extend
doesn't go up.
vertically
Doesn't go,
up.
okay.
It's just 100
And
feet
there's
from the bank of
No
that-
vegetation
that
underneath
brook.
it.
So
That was another
if
thing.
he's not touching, I mean, if he's working and stuff falls into the brook and someone sees it, like then.
But
even then, if he's not actually altering anything and not disturbing the water or the soil at all, there's not really
yeah, and there's not much
anything to do.
there for it to disturb. If it was, there's not like there's plants or anything underneath it. It was just kind of flowing water. So I told him if he wanted to, I would talk to the commission to see if they felt an RDA would be necessary, but I don't even know if an RDA would be necessary, so I don't think we're really able to be jurisdictional for that.
Okay.
I just issued the emergency to remove it.
Okay. Would you like us to ratify that emergency
I would like to.
certification? All right, do I have a motion for 548?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we ratify the emergency certification for the bridge tops at 548 West Street.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Any project updates from anybody on the commission and or our agent? How's your project over at,
96 Exchange Street has not taken off for the season. I did meet with Marcy about the project. They've just been delayed with other projects, and with the weather, it's been nearly impossible for them to get in there. But they are maintaining their erosion controls, and they are keeping an eye on the weather. Will notify me 24 hours before they go out there.
Ghost town.
she's on the ball, where are you?
So that's like a slack on Paul.
I'm keeping an eye on it. Nothing's happened there, or you would have heard.
Budget, request for withdrawal from the wetlands funds for a third-party review.
Yes. I just request that the commission make a vote for the amount needed to withdraw that from the wetland funds, to have it in place to pay Ecotech and Lucas Environmental.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
This is up to that amount, so what happens if the money doesn't get used? Does it get put back in? We want to make sure the money goes back into the wetland
Yeah.
fund. If not,
Yeah, what I could do is I could do a deposit back into the wetland fund
okay.
from that. Yeah, because I had that with other things before, yeah. So what I could do is I could basically write myself a check.
Because it's just getting to the point where we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year.
Just remember,
and
she
they're
said
gonna
that
want
on public thing, she's gonna write herself a check.
No, I'm
Yeah, no, but if there's any money left
I'm
over,
not gonna hold the check.
because the fiscal year will end in like July. Around June is when they want everything closed out, so sometimes in May they'll freeze budgets.
So
So
what-
we want to make sure that we don't get that money frozen.
What we do to avoid that is that we make encumbrances. So I think last year I made my encumbrances in July.
Okay.
And even if the money wasn't there, I was able to kind of use the money while they moved it over.
All right.
I think they recently did an encumbrance
They've
this year.
tried to do that before, where we had money that, and they were like, no, budget's frozen, you can't touch it.
So that's why I kind of want to get ahead
Yeah.
of the game, and maybe, so not to exceed. I can most definitely write the letter to the comptroller and the mayor to have that taken out and removed after I talk to them about the additional fee for, I forget what the additional fee is for. I think one was for a vernal pool, and one was for a meeting, with what that would be for each one, and then calculate that into the wetland requisition
Okay.
fund, send everyone an email. If anyone has any problems, don't reply, I'll just reply, nope, not allowed, and I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Get nothing to vote on.
All right, do I have a motion? Do we want to specify the amount as quoted?
Yes, 1,600 plus 1,600.
Okay. Do I have a motion to withdraw $3,200 for the third-party review on Mary Ave and for Orchard Hill Park?
I will make a motion that we withdraw $3,200 for the third-party reviews for Ecotech and Lucas Environmental for third-party reviews at Orchard Hill and Mary Ave properties.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Next meeting is May 28th, 2019, with a filing deadline of May 10th, 2019 at noon. Is there anything else anybody would like to discuss? Not seeing anything, I declare the meeting adjourned.